Welcome to the BitGeek podcast. I'm your host, Ron Avis, and sitting with me on the couch to my left is my co-host, the Prince of Pixels,
Nick Wright.
And today, we're going to be talking about our 10 favorite movies. So these 10 movies, there are some movies on the list that, especially for you, because you tend to pick your obscure titles.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Like, it's not really fair to say my favorite movies.
Yeah.
They're movies I love.
Yeah. Well, that's really what it should be. These are just 10 movies that we love.
Yeah, but it especially, well, I guess especially like the first one I'm going to say, If I'm honestly gonna say like a list of favorite movies, let's be honest, this one wouldn't be there.
Right.
Do I love the movie? Yes. And so that's just kind of why I just wanted to include it. Is just because I think it's a great movie. You don't really ever hear about it a lot.
Yeah.
At least great for the time, like when I was a kid.
I like how almost sometimes. I don't think of you as a contrarian in any way, but I do think that it's interesting that sometimes if a large number of people say that something's bad, you kind of like will look for something good in it and go, it's not that bad.
So should I just start and just like bring it out there?
Well, I was going to just a few more caveats. These aren't ranked. These are not we don't think these are the 10 ranked best movies.
Yeah, because absolutely not.
These are just movies that mean something to us for whatever reason. And part of that could just be that to make it interesting, like you said, like there are movies that may be on this list that you may find your favorite. One thing that I struggled with was like, should I just pick 5 movies that I've watched the most? Yeah. Because there are movies on this list that are definitely not in there.
And there is one like form of criteria I kind of laughed at that we'll get there when the time comes. That. It just we'll get there.
We'll do our shout outs as we typically do in our 10 favorite style format, because I feel like we have we have to get some shit off our chest. Like we gotta say, like we gotta remember these movies. And we even brought our movies with us. We brought our movies for you video people who get to see. So we own these movies. They're all movies we own. I think that ought to be a criteria, right? You got to own the movie some way.
If you like it that much, you got to at least own it.
And then some movies are hard to find, I guess, or haven't been re-released on Blu-ray, and you never bought it on DVD, but you want it. I don't know. There could be some interesting reasons why you don't own it. But, I mean, I own so many movies anyway. I ought to own these 5, so I do. But yeah, Nick, why don't you go ahead, and you alluded to the one you said, the first one on my list.
Yeah. So, the first one on my list, Popeye. Robin Williams' Popeye, which my understanding was Robin Williams hated this movie.
I think that's so funny.
And
you love it in spite of that.
Yeah, but if I'm going to be honest, no, it's not like one of my most favorite movies of all time. It wouldn't even, I don't think, make like a top 10. But do I love it? Yes, and I just felt like it needed a shout out.
I feel like this deserves to be repeated. Like Robin Williams, it's not one of his. He doesn't like this movie apparently, and he does not strike me at all as someone who's had regrets at anything they do. But this is his regret, I guess.
Yeah,
and because like certain actors, like what's his face who played Obi-Wan, had his regrets, and even though it made him rich. There are actors who have regrets being in stuff. But, like, I wouldn't ever think in a million years Robin Williams would point out something that, was he a fan of Popeye? Do you know why he even took the role? Or was it just that he just needed the money?
Yeah, I mean, that I don't know. But when I was a kid, though, I don't really know if it was so much because of this movie or I just already liked Popeye. But I was, like, a huge fan of Popeye. And, how kids do, like, dress up and try to mimic things and whatever. Because I can remember, like, getting, like, a sailor's hat.
Oh, yeah?
And like, a corncob pipe. And
did you draw, like, an anchor on your forearm?
No, I didn't do that, no. But I definitely wanted, like, a pipe, though, that I could run around with a pipe.
Did you like spinach?
Yeah, I ate spinach. I even had, like, a can of, like, Popeye spinach.
Oh, yeah?
That was, like, a toy. I mean, I played with it. We never opened it, and I would just play with it.
So an actual can of spinach that you played with as a toy.
Pretty much. Like,
'Cause
I rolled it,
originally-
like, up and down the driveway.
I originally took that statement as you had an officially licensed Popeye toy that was spinach.
No, it's Popeye spinach. That's like the
Oh,
brand.
that's right, because there's a Popeye brand spinach.
Yeah, it was Popeye spinach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that I understand. You would roll it up and down the driveway. I don't remember
Yeah.
Popeye ever doing that.
No, I don't think he did, but
Okay.
it was just something, I did. Like, kids just do, like, crazy things. Like,
Yeah.
I would just, our driveway had, like, a hill to it. And
Right.
I would just take it, and I would let it go, let gravity do its thing.
Oh, sure.
And then I would run down the driveway and, like, catch it.
Oh, you would let it go and then try to catch it. That was your game?
Yeah, like, I would run past it and then, like, catch it down at the
Well,
bottom.
good, because I can't imagine you'd be like someone who would be like, oh, here comes a car. And, like, roll it down the driveway. And
Well, I mean, I stayed within my own driveway. I didn't,
Yeah.
like, run out in the street.
Right. Could you do a Popeye, like, impression?
No.
No, okay. I'm going to try. Okay, let me see. That's
pretty
it's
good.
okay. I was thinking, like, how am I going to do this? And then it just sort of came out. I always picture, like, Joey Gladstone from, like, Full House. Like, that was one of his go-to impressions. Like, Rocky the Bullwinkle, Popeye. That's pretty much it. Lots of variations of that.
But, I mean, this movie, it was a musical.
And all at once I knew at once, I knew he needed me. Until the day I die, I won't know why, I knew he needed me.
It was, okay, it was faithful. It was faithful to the cartoon. Was it Shelley Duvall who was Olive Oyl?
Yeah.
Very Olive Oyl-esque in physique. She took it seriously. And Popeye, when he would walk around, he kind of did his little, steps that he would do. He didn't just do like a regular walk. It was always like a little kind of like dancing walk.
Oh, and I love like that scene where there was like that boxing match, and he twisted like he's
Yeah. Yeah, they would like. That's a classic Popeye cartoon move. No, Popeye cartoons, I feel like were pretty heavily like played in syndication when we were little kids. So I can see how like making a movie would, things are always retro, and in the '80s you'd be looking at like '50s or '60s. So I guess Popeye was popular in the '50s because it wasn't '80s. When the '80s came around, it was the '50s that were being like the retro thing.
Yeah.
You'd always see those like '50s diners and in movies like I won't say any names, but there were a lot of '50s things going on in the '80s. So I don't know, like, do you know when Popeye originally started, like in the cartoon?
Oh, it was 50s, I think.
Was it '50s? Okay.
Something like that.
Well, part of me too is like, was it World War I or II era? Because that would have been post World War II. So was he supposed to be a sailor in like one of the world wars? There was definitely no propaganda that I can remember. Looney Tunes always had like World War II propaganda, I feel like, baked into it.
Oh man, and before that actually.
Oh yeah.
The character first appeared in the Daily King Features comic strip on January 17th, 1929.
Whoa. Okay, so he was already
that was
kind
like
of
a
out
comic
of
strip. So I wonder when like the first cartoon was.
Yeah. So there's the comic strip, and then
So 33 was it wasn't even that. It's just a few years after the comic.
Oh wow, interesting. So I guess I don't know why it was so popular. I guess Popeye's just a timeless thing. Although you don't get a lot of Popeye nowadays. I never see any Popeye cartoons.
Yeah.
But I liked Wimpy.
I will gladly pay you Tuesday
for a hamburger today. Yeah. He looked like Wimpy.
I
He
loved
sounded
how
like Wimpy.
the movie would, like, they would talk like they would, like, in the old cartoons. Like, yeah, he'd kind of, like, mumble things, like, under his breath.
And Bluto.
Yeah.
Bluto would kind of mumble things under his breath, too.
Women and things first. Here you go. I'll get back to you, I will. It'll something to remember me by. Good luck.
The cartoon would do that all the time.
Oh,
like, they wouldn't even, like, move their mouths. It just...
It was very faithful to the cartoon, I feel like.
Yeah.
Do you know who directed that?
No.
I feel like it was kind of a fame. You have to pull up IMDb, especially since we're going to be probably asking questions like that pretty frequently. You pull up IMDb, because I want to know who directed that. I almost want to say it was like a Harold, like a
Robert Altman.
Robert Altman. Okay, well that's a familiar name. Oh gosh, I wonder how much he hated that movie too. 'Cause I want to say he's kind of a more prestigious director. Like he's done a lot of look at Robert Altman, see what other movies he's known for. Because I want to bet you there were some well-known movies from him. It's like some classic movies.
The MASH movie.
Okay, yeah, very not Popeye-esque. But yeah, Popeye was great. Robin Williams, a young Robin Williams, probably. And just started Mork and Mindy, I guess. He's in the middle of the Mork and Mindy run.
Yeah, because this was 1980.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Popeye came out in 1980, so he looks super young in that movie, and he was. It's sad that he looks at that movie as it was one of his least favorite movies. I wonder if it had anything to do with just making the movie too, because wasn't it a lot of it on sea? And I know that traditionally movies, when made on sets on water, are like a nightmare to make due to weather and just the elements. They're just not fun to make.
Yeah.
So and there was the scene too where they had didn't he fight an octopus towards the end?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were in water a lot. It could maybe just had something to do with that. But although the tone, I know what you mean. I don't think that was it. I don't think it had anything to do with
I don't know.
making the movie necessarily, as it was just he's embarrassed by it a bit. So you say it was a musical. I believe you, but I don't really remember that many songs.
Oh yeah.
I remember that I am what I am and it's all that I am. I think I remember that song. But other than that, was the boxing match a song too?
I don't remember if there was a song during that scene. I mean, maybe afterwards or something.
Yeah.
But when he first gets to the town, everybody breaks out in song.
Oh, classic, yeah, Beauty and the Beast style.
Yeah. Hey, there's songs all through it.
Oh, that's cool. That's a movie that I haven't seen in a long time, to be honest. It's one that I'm gonna have to look up.
I'd like to watch it again.
When's the last time you watched it, do you think?
Oh, it's been years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I see you've got the DVD, which is older anyway. Trying to look and see. I've seen all the movies on my list pretty recently. But Popeye, yeah, it's one of those movies that came out it was on cable quite a bit back in the day. I remember seeing that on HBO and stuff a lot. And I was the right age for it. It was a very, I'm sure it's PG,
Oh yeah.
very, very, very kid friendly, very tame.
I'm sure it says. But... Oh yeah, PG.
Yeah. Is that Burgess Meredith on the back? It kind of looks like him a little bit. Oh, no, that's just Popeye. What am I thinking? Who's the actor that played Bluto? I'm trying to look. So he doesn't really look like anybody that I'm familiar with.
Paul L. Smith.
Yeah, no, it was definitely Robin Williams and Shelley Duvall. So in 1980, Shelley Duvall, she had not even done, or was that, let's see, did The Shining come out in 1980 as well? I think it almost was. It might be. So, it was, if not 1980, it was very close to then.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, so what a weird year for Shelley Duvall. She does The Shining, which is one of the all-time great horror movies. And then she does this whimsical, silly little cartoon inspired musical. Oh, there's a little baby. I forgot about him.
Sweet Pea.
Sweet Pea, yeah. But yeah, I love that they actually gave him big old bulgy forearms,
Yeah.
Yeah. But Shelley Duvall is pinpoint casting. Sometimes you'll see an actor cast in a movie and you're obviously they were born to play that movie or that role. And she looks like olive oil. She's so skinny and lean and it's got the hair going. Look at those shoes, those big old shoes. The costume
Just
design.
like the cartoon.
Yeah, the costume design is great. I guess, people just didn't necessarily care to get a Popeye movie at the time. I don't remember this being a bomb. It must not have been a bomb. Because there's a lot of famous movies that are bombs. I never hear Popeye as one of them.
It seems like I've heard it did not do well, but...
So, not
I
well.
I was so young, I don't know.
Yeah, we didn't pay attention to any of that stuff. I mean, hardly any of us did. going to see a movie in 1980 is way different than going to see a movie nowadays. For starters, movies would play in cinemas for a long, long time. Like, you could go see a movie that came out in January, probably still in April. Even if it wasn't a big hit, they just let them play for so much longer. Nowadays, a movie gets like 2-3 weeks, and then it's
done.
It's done. So, you had your chances
You
to
can
see
buy
Popeye.
it in like a couple weeks after that.
Probably. The way things are going now, I'm almost expecting you to be able to buy it digitally like 2 weeks after its release.
Yeah.
But, I kind of like that you can buy it digitally 2 or 3 weeks before the home video release, and then you get it, then too. But the gap's getting shorter and shorter. Like, Black Panther is out on Blu-ray this past week, and it's still playing in cinemas as far as I know.
Oh, did it come out?
Yes.
Oh, I guess I need to get that.
Yeah. And it just came out in February. So, here we are, May. That's not all. I can never think of a time where a movie was still playing in theaters that came out on video. That's insane. Just speaks to the legs that movie, I guess, it had. But Popeye definitely didn't have that kind of success. There was no shared, Popeye universe. Do you have any other memories of Popeye? Like, what about, like, Mark and Ruth? What were their feelings on Popeye?
Oh, I think they all liked it.
You all liked it pretty much,
Yeah,
watched it as a family?
I think so. I mean,
Did you see it in theaters?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
It feels like a drive-in movie to me. Like, I could totally have seen that.
I'm not even really sure the first time I saw it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know.
I bet you probably saw it like me on cable one day.
Yeah.
Because it was a movie that you would see played on cable quite a bit. Not even movie channels, too, like TBS or whatever. So, yeah, that's a cool one. Do you have a favorite part in the movie? Or was the boxing part kind of like your favorite?
I guess either the boxing part where he does that, like I already said,
Yeah.
or the octopus.
The octopus. I can't remember that scene very well. I know that Bluto is swiped Sweet Pea, right? That's kind of the...
Well, yeah.
Is that the situation?
And he kidnapped Olive Oil. So, I mean, it was like the final showdown.
And he kind of took him to this... It was this little rock, right? Like a little island rock where they were. I still remember it that well.
I don't remember it very clearly either. Like, I remember... There was like a boat blew up or something.
Did he torpedo or something like that through the water?
Yeah.
Okay, I remember that.
Yeah.
It's such a good movie. Like, this is a classic Nick pick. I really dig it. It's classic because it makes me want to go watch the movie now. And for listeners, viewers watching this or listening to this, you're probably intrigued as well. Like, you probably want to go, holy crap, Popeye, yeah.
Well, and I think it's very faithful to the cartoon where, you get stuff nowadays and it's like,
concessions are made constantly.
Yeah, the artistic license. It's like not even like
God,
remotely close.
Yeah. No, they didn't have any problems with Popeye. They totally nailed it. And I love the town. The towns look great. I liked everything. They did a really solid job with Popeye. I can understand why you would love that movie so much. I didn't know you'd love that movie so much.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I figure most people like it. And it's probably come up from time to time, like talking about movies.
Yeah, it's one that I loved as a kid that I don't really talk about much, though.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't
It's
stand
not
toe
really
to toe with
relevant.
Star Wars or anything.
Yeah, and it's not really relevant now, whereas Star
It's totally not
Wars
relevant now,
is
yeah.
still relevant. Transformers are still relevant,
Yeah.
So.
Would you be excited to see a Popeye remake of some kind?
That'd be strange, I think. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be interested.
Okay. All right. So it's a good pick to get us started. I guess we'll roll over to my number one.
Okay.
Number one for me is the most recent movie on my list. I mean, like I say, I watch movies all the time, but it's interesting that so many of these movies are from my youth, and this is the most recent one. And so I was in my 20s when this movie came out. But it's a little movie starring Keanu Reeves called The Matrix.
I know Kung Fu.
Yeah.
You're asking for favorite scenes. That's my favorite scene.
That's your favorite scene? That training montage was so damn good.
Yeah.
When we could talk about The Matrix, I feel like, for a long time. So yeah, The Matrix came out in 1999, and it was so different than everything else. the look was different. The effects were different. It was like an anime or something, like the way it moved. Keanu Reeves was sort of, not popular at that time.
It's like Ted, Bill and Ted.
Yeah, well, the joke about Keanu Reeves back in the day was in every movie he would be like, whoa. And he does it in this movie too. Yeah. But I mean, anytime I'd see a Keanu Reeves movie, and I don't think he's done it like in his like John Wick. I don't think he does it in any of those types of movies. He's an interesting character. I love Keanu Reeves. He's one of my favorites. I don't think he's a good actor, but he's hella likable.
Yeah. He's
so likable. And I've never watched him in anything that I just didn't like him or want to root for him. It didn't matter what it was. Even in movies like Devil's Advocate, like where I don't think you're supposed to necessarily be rooting for him. He's just likable. He's totally wooden, but he's just one of those guys. So it's like I didn't know what to think about this movie. It's like you got Ted Theodore Logan is the lead. You got Lawrence Fishburne, who's a known actor, but for things like Boys in the Hood, and I have a bunch of other stuff. Like he was more kind of a serious actor. Then Carrie Ann Moss was an unknown. Who else was in that movie? They were like the three main characters, really. Trinity, Neo, and Morpheus. Yeah. So, I promised that we were like, we're not going to go like blow by blow at these movies, but I'm just trying to like convey in my head that scene. Well, it starts out so amazing, like where Trinity's like running and those agents come up. You don't even know what to expect. And the first time she kind of does that, like moves off the wall and she starts bending time and doing this weird shit, this bullet time effects. It's insane. I just wanted more of it and more of it and more of it. I couldn't get enough. And that movie gives you so much. And it introduces you to this crazy concept of you being trapped in your brain and you're running through this computer simulation. And Neo is just like this everyday dude who's like finds out he's the chosen one. And that's where like the kung fu stuff kind of comes in, And so everything gets downloaded into you. Like things you have no idea, like he knows kung fu. Yeah. They're running these programs through his brain and he just suddenly knows how to do these amazing kung fu moves.
All of a sudden now he knows how to fly a helicopter.
Yeah. And what's also amazing is when Keanu Reeves, another thing I like about him is when he does a movie, he like really seems to fully commit. He learned like a lot of this stuff. Like these aren't like doubles. Like he and Lawrence Fishburne are like hitting each other. Like I've read stories where like they're hurting each other, like not on purpose, but like moves where like you're trying to choreograph things a certain way and you get popped in the mouth by accident. Right. They're really going at it. And I can't think of many movies where like there's like a style and a story and a look. All things are coming together and it just keeps you engrossed throughout the whole movie. And you got Hugo Weaving as the agent.
Oh yeah, and this is the movie that introduced me to like his voice.
Oh man.
In one life, you're Thomas A. Anderson, program writer for a respectable software company. You have a social security number, you pay your taxes, and you help your landlady carry out her garbage.
He's so good in this.
I love listening to him
talk.
And
he's just like, I love his story. He just doesn't want to be in this simulation anymore. He hates it. And he's just searching for Neo. Like, killing Neo gets him out of this world that he hates. Like, I smell your sweat. Like, he's doing that monologue when he first meets Neo in the real, not the real world, but the simulated world. Right. Where he's just like a computer programmer and a hacker by night or whatever. And you're just like, I remember the first time seeing this agent who, in a lot of movies, like an agent would just be this throwaway nothing character. He's just the antagonist. He's the agent wants to stop the good guy. But he's in the simulation. Like, he's everyone. He can change into anybody. So because of that, he's such a foe. He's such a formidable foe. Mm-hmm. He knows how to manipulate the Matrix already. And Neo is just kind of like trying to get caught up. Like, they're trying to catch him up through the whole movie. Until the very end, it concludes where he stops the bullet. And he starts to see the code, which was a great moment. When he finally sees this code and he's like doing like the moves against the agents where he's like stopping them and he's like looking at himself like go real slow. And they're struggling to keep up with him. But yeah, the I Know Kung Fu was great. I like the part where they were at the top of the building and like Trinity, she's got like the gun right up on the agent and he seems unstoppable and she's like, dodge this, boom, and like shoots him. But then he just turns into the pilot, you know? So it's kind of got like this Terminator aspect, you know, like the liquid Terminator from T2. It's just unstoppable. It's hopeless almost. But then Neo starts getting so powerful. He's almost like a god at one point towards the end of the movie. But yeah, The Matrix, it's just one of those flicks, like, that just forces you to look, like, analytically look at things. There's websites devoted to the lore of The Matrix, the way they write these movies, and in particular the sequels, which aren't necessarily my favorite.
Yeah.
They're entertaining, but they do seem a bit self-indulgent, the way the dialogue and stuff.
The first was definitely the shining star.
I remember how excited I was to get like a follow-up because, you know, he kind of ends like he flies. He literally flies away like Superman at the end of the first one.
Yeah.
So your mind is just racing. Like, what is happening? It's like the movie could have ended right there and probably should have. Like, I don't know if anybody necessarily thought this movie would be a huge hit just by the actors they got in it. Like, they just got whoever they could. The Wachowskis are an unknown commodity at this time. The brothers at the time. And, you know, it just was like a perfect storm. Everything came together. It was one of those, like, everyone in that movie is, like, now famous for that movie. And The Matrix, like, I just get excited thinking about watching that movie. And I've watched it a bunch of times. I had that on VHS, and I wore it out, dude. I remember the first time I got it, I watched it over and over and over.
Yeah.
And then when DVD was becoming a thing, I got it on DVD and watched it over and over and over.
Did you get, like, the Matrix, like, screensaver that had, like, the code?
Probably. Now, I wasn't, like, so into The Matrix that it was my religion, like some people, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it kind of almost became religion to them. Because there's, like, all these religious parallels, obviously, to it. So they just take it way seriously.
Screensaver just because it was cool.
It looked cool, yeah. The green code. Yeah. But is there anything about The Matrix that, like, stands out to you? Like, we didn't see The Matrix together, like, at the same time. So,
I
like,
don't think so.
What was your, like, what were you thinking?
We saw 2 together.
Yeah, we saw 2 together. What did you think of The Matrix? Like, did it instantly blow you away, or was it like you got into it because everyone else was into it?
Honestly, I don't remember. I mean, I think I loved it. Yeah. You know, just as soon as I watched it.
Oh, I love the scene too, where like they're going to rescue Trinity or no Morpheus, and they have all the guns in the bag.
Oh,
well, first that scene, he's like, I need a weapon, and all the like weapons come flying out of the white space.
Yeah.
And they're just loaded to the gills, and they walk through the metal detector. And all the, like, they'd be like NPCs now, you know, like non-playable characters. They're just kind of in the Matrix doing their own job, the security. So, like, they're, you know, they have no chance against, like, Trinity and Neo. But they pulling out all these machine guns, and they're doing, like, kick flips off columns and, like, doing all this crazy stuff. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of my favorite movies. I could watch it anytime. That's another thing that I would like to think, that if one of my favorite movies is a qualifier, like, I would be up to watching it anytime. You know, sometimes movies I think are really great, but they stress me out and I don't want to watch them all that much.
Right.
You know, this is one of those movies that I can if it's on cable, I can just pick it up at any point and watch it. I don't care. And I can stop watching it at any time because there's so many good things about the movie. So many cool scenes all the way through. So, yeah, The Matrix, that's what I'm kicking things off with. My number one, not ranked, but the first movie of my 5. So we'll cut it on over to you, sir.
Right,
What's your next movie?
My second movie is Short Circuit. Oh yeah, you didn't hold yours up.
I didn't even hold mine up. The Matrix. Oh, Short Circuit.
So, yeah,
Johnny
Circuit.
Five's alive.
Number 5 is alive.
Starring the Goot.
Yeah, Gutenberg.
Steve Gutenberg. And who was the girl? Is it Ali Sheedy?
Ali Sheedy.
Yeah, classic Ali
and,
Sheedy.
what was his name?
Fisher Stevens.
Yeah.
The
You know what people are liking at night? Headlights.
Yeah. Now here's what's funny. This is that whole like Simpsons and Apu like stereotypical like, now that would be racism. For 100% racism.
Right.
Well, the cat is dragged in a sight for 4 eyes, that is for sure. You look dreadful. Oh, Charlotte, this is a barrel of monkeys. Oh, let us go scrape up some female chicks.
And Fisher Stevens is a white guy. He's not even Indian. So it's one of those like movies of its time, but I don't care. I loved it. I loved it so much. I'm sorry, Indian people who would find that offensive. I can understand why you would find it offensive. You're totally right. But I was just an ignorant little white kid. Just a little kid. I didn't know any better. I was in it for Johnny Five, and he just made me laugh.
And that was like the first thing I'd ever seen him in. So when I'd heard him talk later on
Yeah.
without the accent, it's like,
What the hell? I thought Fisher Stevens was Indian. No, he's not Indian. Look at him. Just look at him. I don't know. I plead ignorance. I was just a little kid. But okay, so yeah, Johnny Five. You know what I think about Johnny Five? I think I remember you drawing him all the time.
yeah.
And like I guess it would have been middle school.
Yeah, and I would make like out of like cardboard. Like I would try to make like a full size one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like out of boxes and stuff. Like
Cool.
Like I'd get a box, the size of his head or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
and I'd draw like the eyeballs on it.
Sure,
or whatever,
sure.
And get like like a paper towel tube or something for like his neck.
For his
or
neck,
something.
yep.
Yeah, I would try to make Johnny Five.
I love that prop. It takes me back to the days when like practical effects and things like that. He's total puppet. Like I don't think he's actually remote controlled, or maybe he is.
No, yeah, I think he is.
Is he remote controlled? Like okay.
I've seen something that
I mean, I know there's
somebody
nobody
had,
in him, but I wasn't sure if like he actually was rolling around. I mean, you had the scenes where they were rolling in a line because Johnny Five was the fifth of five, right? There were 5 robots just.
I don't know if there were only 5. I mean, obviously he was number 5.
I just picture him being like the last one when they're like demonstrating. And
I kind of remember that. Like he kind of swerved off or
kind of swerved off
so,
course.
So that you may be right there.
But yeah, they're supposed to. It's the 80s, and in the 80s, it's like Cold War era. The government's looking for the next super weapon, basically. And it's kind of ridiculous because he's just like this little cute anthropomorphic like type robot.
Yeah.
He's got arms and a little face and he's so cute and he's got, but when he's not Johnny Five with like the eyebrows moving around and stuff, like they are kind of mean looking.
Yeah.
They don't have that, personality before he gets struck by lightning.
Right.
But he does get struck by lightning and he comes to life. And good old Steve Guttenberg, gets him out of there, and he finds Ali Sheedy's character, who's just like, this girl who's got an abusive boyfriend on the farm.
Right.
I haven't watched. No, that's another movie I haven't watched in quite a while, but I want to see that again too. I bet it holds up just fine. I think it would hold up just fine because the effects were practical, so you don't have to worry about those looking bad. And other than like the whole like Fisher Stevens thing, like that might be a bit cringy, I guess. If you're sensitive to that, which we're not, I guess.
It wouldn't bother me.
Yeah, right. Well, that's like a thing right now in the news with like there's a documentary called like I Am Not Apu, and it's like some Indian filmmaker who
Oh yeah.
They're taking like Matt Groening to task over the Simpsons Apu character. Okay, that was 1986. It's 2018 and we're still using this stereotype as one of the main characters in the Simpsons. Stop it. It's insensitive. But like Matt Groening's like doubling down. He's like not. His whole stance is like people just want to be offended by anything nowadays. Apu's a good character. He has a good heart. He's a good man. He owns a business. He's just not having any of it.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly I agree with him.
Yeah. I mean, I've been around Indian people. They sound like that. They may not say like "thank you" and "come again" or all that stuff, and I think that's what most people are upset about. But, or the convenience store. Like, you got to own a convenience store or a Subway.
What is he supposed to say?
I don't know. If that's just the thing. Like, I'm not offended, but I'm not Indian, so whatever. This isn't about that.
Anyway.
What was his name in the movie, Fisher Stevens' character? Because he was like the little scientist, the little nerdy scientist guy. His whole purpose was to help Steve Guttenberg get Johnny Five back. Of course, the government just wants their weapon back, so they don't really care that he's human. They want to get him back to a cold killing machine. So that's where the I guess the what's the word I'm looking for?
Ben.
Oh, Ben was his name in the movie.
Yeah, I can't say his last name. I don't.
Okay.
Japatuya or I don't know.
The whole conflict is the government wants Johnny Five back. When they get him back, they don't want him to be human-like anymore. So Ali Sheedy takes him in, but we see Ali Sheedy. She obviously has a lot of animals on her farm. Like she just takes people in, she's kind of like, like you can't have him. He's mine, and they become like really close friends. She teaches him how to dance. She like fills him with input. Input. And, like speed reads through all the books. Yeah. He was just like, blah, 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 and he would just like toss the book behind him, like, need more input. I love Johnny Five. He was such a cute character.
Yeah.
Key obstacles, visibility, 5 feet, 2 feet, no feet.
Hey, laser lips! Your mama was a snowblower.
I always thought it would be cute to have like a little radio controlled version of him.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm surprised.
Why didn't they make a toy?
I don't know. Wouldn't Radio Shack, wouldn't they have been smart to like license that and sell
like,
those?
In Short Circuit too,
they had
that's
those.
What he was doing was like selling like little remote controlled ones.
Yep.
But as far as I know, they never marketed it or anything.
Well, what was the thing? The line in Los Locos kick your face.
Los Locos kick your face, or no, Los Locos kick your ass.
That's right. Los kick your face.
Los locos kick your ass! Los locos kick your face! Los locos kick your balls into outer space!
Yeah. Short Circuit 2 was pretty fun, too. I like that one. And, of course, at the end, he becomes a citizen, I think. And they dip him in gold. He's, like, gold-plated. But that was, like, the whole struggle in the second one. Is he's a citizen, he's actually one of us. Mm-hmm. He's not a thing anymore. Kind of like... Ted. Like Ted kind of fights for his right to be a person. The standout scene is when he's dancing with Ali Sheedy to the Bee Gees.
Yeah.
More Than a Woman or whatever. It was really touching, man. It's really interesting how they were able to make this character seem so lifelike. Do you know who the voice was for Johnny? And I wonder if is he just a known voice actor or was he an actual actor of, in cinema?
So this says Tim Blaney, number 5. So I don't know if that means that it's his voice or it's the guy that controlled him, or I don't know what that means.
Good point. I imagine it's his voice. Because if you're, if you're in IMDb, you're probably an actor. No, not necessarily. I guess IMDb lists crew. Was he in anything else notable? I like to know what people have been in. IMDb. For those of you who don't know, it's just like the greatest website of all time. I'm on that thing so constantly.
Men in Black 2. In Men in Black.
As who?
I don't know.
Was he like Frank, the dog?
What did I say his name was? Tim
Blaney? Yeah, Tim Blaney. You can't just tease Men in Black and Men in Black 2. What was he?
I don't see his name now.
Another thing I'm kind of surprised that they never actually had a cartoon feature for Short Circuit. Didn't that just seem like right for an 80s cartoon?
Yeah.
No toys, no merchandising, period. I don't remember ever seeing a bed sheet of any kind for Short Circuit.
He's Frank the Pug.
I was right. The dog. Okay. Well, I can't really hear it in my head right now, but I'm happy to know that he's made a living as something else, not just Johnny Five. That wasn't just it. So he is a character. He is a voice actor. That's his deal.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you saw Short Circuit?
The 80s.
The 80s. Was it like a theater or was it like just on VHS?
I don't think it was the theater.
I definitely remember renting that from a video store.
Yeah, that's probably what we did.
Yeah, that's for sure one that I remember seeing because it has like and it might be the box art of the DVD, but it's like the lightning striking him. Yeah. That was I remember what was the VHS art. And because of that imagery, it kind of scared me. Like, this looks pretty ominous. It's such a lighthearted movie that a kid can enjoy. But when you're just looking at and that's how we, as viewers in movies, that's how we pick movies most of the time, was just looking at the box art. So, like, I'm probably wanting to pick some Disney or a cartoon out, and Mom's like, let's get this. And I'm like, what about this Frankenstein shit do you want to see? Like, look at the lightning is, like, striking this monster. I don't want to see this. I wonder why they chose to pick that. And in later releases in DVD, like, I think they just would have his, like, face, like, more friendly.
Yeah, all happy.
Yeah. Like, maybe that's what they should have gone with.
Oh, I had the lightning. That's interesting, though. Like, this was all like blue and mine.
Yeah, I feel like this is what was the VHS that I saw, not that version. Yeah. Because I feel like you could see Johnny a little bit clearer, and on that you can. It's cropped in a little tighter. But yeah, that's a great movie. That is such a quintessentially 80s movie. Everything about it. And a lot of movies on my list are from the 80s, and I had a hard time detaching myself from picking all 80s movies.
Yeah, I think, no, I don't have all 80s.
No, you don't.
There's one exception.
Okay, you have one exception. But anytime like we would get together and talk about, like here's the topic, and we'll talk about, what we're gonna do. And like anytime I would come up with a new movie, it was like an 80s movie. Like, damn it, I gotta stop picking all these 80s movies.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just because that's my formative years. It has to be. Or maybe it's just because movies were better back then. I don't know. Maybe movies were just better back in the 80s. You get a lot of like remakes and sequels and CG fests nowadays.
I don't know. I guess it has something to do with the nostalgia factor. I mean, because there's great movies that come out now, but
Yeah.
there's that nostalgia factor.
Nostalgia is a powerful thing for sure. So, it could be just a combination of all those things. Who knows? But yeah, Short Circuit. Great pick. I like that one. So move on to my
On to
number
you.
two. On to me. Okay. So my next pick is a movie that once again I've recently watched it. It holds up so damn good. It's just a classic movie, and it might be the perfect movie, seriously. And that's Back to the Future.
And you know what?
Yep.
I do remember the first time I saw this.
Oh, cool. Tell me about it.
I mean, it's not like a fancy.
It wasn't some epic. So here we were in this building, and it was storming, and
I just actually remember this.
Oh no, that's cool. So was it a rental? Was it that kind of thing?
No, it was. I was in elementary school, and I stayed the night at a friend's house, and we watched it.
Oh, cool.
So
the parents rented it for you?
I think. I don't know. He was just like, "Hey, you've got to watch this movie."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
That's how you learn stuff.
So
back in the day,
I don't know like how he already had it. I don't know, but I was in 3rd grade, I think, and
I probably was too.
I'm like, okay.
My introduction to it is a bit stranger. My brother had the soundtrack on cassette. And the soundtrack, of course, was just nothing but like great Huey Lewis songs.
Right.
Some of which are actually in the movie, some are not. But the cover was that great classic cover. Let's see if I got it here. Yeah, pretty much. Well, they're standing at the not this top part's the part, but where the DeLorean wing, the door is up, and they're kind of
maybe the does it separate out?
Yeah, maybe. If not, I can always just throw a poster up in the video.
Oh, no. Not like I thought it would.
Yeah, this is one of those deals where, like, I just have the collection on Blu-ray, so I don't have, like, the individual, and I'm sure I probably have it on DVD somewhere, if I had it, or at least VHS. But, it's that classic where, like, they're checking their watches, and, like, the DeLorean door is popped open, and there's, like, it's mysterious. Like, it's not obvious to me that it's a car. I didn't know what a DeLorean was at the time. But it looked real futuristic, and of course Doc's wearing that like plutonium suit, and I recognize Michael J. Fox as Alex P. Keaton, and also from Teen Wolf. I recognized him from Teen Wolf, so I knew who he was, but I didn't know who Christopher Lloyd was, and so the concept of the movie was totally foreign to me. I have no memory of it like playing on like on TV, like advertisements for it or anything.
That doesn't show. I had that, but it doesn't show Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's all the first one was. Maybe the second one is where because like I feel like in each sequel they kind of like varied that stance.
Yeah, I think that's true. It must just be in part 2 it added him.
Right, but yeah, because as you can see, like it's not like obvious what he is next to. No car I'd ever seen in my life at the time had wings, doors that opened up like that. So it didn't even register to me at the time that it was a car. So, and you got like the flames and it's kind of dangerous. But my brother had the soundtrack and it had this on the cover. So I was always looking at this cassette cover, just mesmerized by it. And I'm listening to this great music.
Don't need money, don't take fame, don't need no credit card to ride this train. It's cruel sometimes, but it might just save your life.
And then right around that same time, I'm driving by the video store. We're looking for movies to get, and they had like one of those cardboard standouts that you would often see at video stores.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. Like it was cut out. It wasn't like the whole DeLorean, and he's standing there checking his watch, and the doors swung open. And like my mom rented it, and I'm sure it was a massive hit. Obviously, Steven Spielberg, Robert Zemeckis. So, it was a huge, huge hit. So, like, obviously, they had the posters and, like, the big standout. Like, they didn't have, like, a cardboard standee if it wasn't, like, a big movie. So, I guess, like, because of that, my mom was like, let's try it. And, I was familiar with, like, E.T. and stuff. Like, we knew who Spielberg was. Jaws, E.T., whatever. I didn't see Jaws for a while. But, anyways, I knew there was, like, something about those movies.
Right.
So, but, yeah. So, like, I'm introduced to this great, basically time travel movie. That, for my money, is still the best movie about time travel. And I always find those movies kind of interesting. Like, I loved, like, time travel element in a science fiction-y kind of way, like Terminator and whatever, like other classic movies that utilize time travel. But that, for me, that's, like, the best use of time travel. And they really play with it nice in future sequels when they would, they're going back in time, but, like, what the events of the first movie are playing in the background. So you have all these complex layers of, it's going to happen over here. But the thing that they set up in the movies that was great is, like, Doc warns you, like, you cannot interfere because any interference could disrupt the time continuum. And, there's danger. It's not just going back in time and changing something willy-nilly. It implanted that seed in my head of all these movies that use it still, of, like, a butterfly effect. Like, the slightest little change can affect the future in the biggest way.
Well, and that was, like, kind of the whole point of the movie, because, like, he was, he's disappearing because it was, like, altering history by him being there.
By him just being there,
Because now his mom's, like, falling in love with him.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So he's, like, not even going to exist.
Yeah, and Calvin Klein, like, she sees him, like, in his underwear. Who's Calvin Klein? Oh, that's, And then later on, he used Clint Eastwood as, like, his alias.
Right.
Again, so like they go back in time to the 50s, 80s, and 50s. It's that whole thing where, like 50s, nostalgia was big at that time. And I just love everything about that movie. It's so good. It's so tense. Like I've seen that movie maybe literally 50 times. And I'm always like the part where he's trying to get the clock tower, like, set up, and the tree falls on the cable, and he's like, "Ooh!" and he's got to like slide down, and I'm always tense, even though I've seen that so many times. I feel tense at that scene, and I like there are certain movies that like I don't enjoy because of the tension, but this one doesn't bother me so much. But I mean, Michael J. Fox is just like he was just the hottest thing in the '80s. He was such a relatable guy, not a real big guy. He's just wisecracking, smart, funny. Great young cast. Leah Thompson was in it, and Christopher Lloyd. Can you say about that guy? I mean, he's played he's a character actor, I guess, is all you really can say.
Yeah. Yeah, he's great.
He's Fester.
Yeah.
But before that, I guess he was in Taxi.
Yeah.
Maybe that was his most recognizable role.
Yeah.
And I love it too because they aged him in that movie. And so he's always just like this old white-haired guy. Now he's actually old and white-haired. So when they had like the anniversary not that long, back in 2015, he really is old now and kind of feeble, but he still can say his lines. And Michael J. Fox unfortunately has his health issues. But man, it was just so great to see Marty and Doc together come out in a DeLorean and do anything. I don't care. The sequels are excellent. I love the sequels. The trilogy is totally watchable.
Yeah, all of them hold up good.
I guess my least favorite is the third one, but it's really good.
Yeah.
And it spawned that really good cartoon that came out, like on Saturday mornings was really good. It's like everything about the movie is tight. Like they don't do anything in that movie that doesn't mean something. And they use it to great, just a terrific effect. Everything, every little detail in the movie. And if there was something in the first movie that didn't maybe not have meant anything during that movie, they made it mean something in later movies, which is smart. It's just really smart writing. So, Robert Zemeckis, he's responsible for a lot of really, really excellent movies. Any which of ones could have been on my list, like Forrest Gump, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He's just known as like a special effects pioneer, but that was his greatest trick, is convincing me that, this kid can get in this cool DeLorean and go back in time. And like the technology and the science, to me, a dummy feels legit.
But I need a nuclear reaction to generate the 1.21 gigawatts of electricity.
1.21 gigawatts! 1.21 gigawatts! Great Scott! What the hell is a gigawatt?
It feels legit. Yeah. So what about you, Nick? What stands out most to you for Back to the Future?
Stands out? I don't know. It's a great movie. I love it.
Yeah. We mentioned the DeLorean in our favorite vehicles.
I remember that scene, not necessarily that it stand out like in a good way, but, the first time I was watching it, just as a young kid, when Doc is killed, in the beginning.
Oh, yeah, it's traumatic.
Yeah, that was just like, oh,
You didn't know that he was going to be in the movie still because he goes back in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, where he's running from the Libyans.
Down with like the
it's the Libyans! Yeah. I love, too, that mall, like, my brother moved out to California in the 80s, and I remember him, like, telling me about that mall. Like, he found it, and he would, like, take pictures of it.
Your brother?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because my brother did the same.
He moved out to California after school or whatever and got a job out there. But, yeah, my brother moved out there just to get away. Like, he moved out there. Like, he just moved to California up and out of nowhere.
Yeah, every now and then, my brother Mark, talks about
the Twin Pines Mall. I guess is what it was. Was that the actual name, or was that just the name of the movie?
Mark could tell me. I forget.
I don't think it's called the Twin Pines Mall in real life, although it might be.
I remember him saying something like they used to, and maybe they still do. I don't remember, but they used to have like the signs like that they used from the movies, like in the mall, on display.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see if you bastards can do 80 or 90 or whatever he said. I love that movie. It made me want to like learn how to drive a stick. Like I've always had a fascination with stick shifts.
Yeah.
Maybe it came from that. I don't know.
Holy shit! Let's see if you bastards can do 90.
But I really do stand by, like, I don't know, there's not a single plot hole in that movie that I could think of. I don't feel like there's a single part of the movie that doesn't need to be there. Yeah. It's just rich with characters, and the effects are wonderful, and, like, it just stands up so damn good. And, it's one of those movies that, like, from time to time, like, you wish, like, wouldn't it be great if they made another movie? But they could never do it. You couldn't remake it with anyone else, and they're just probably not their health would not allow them to make another movie. So it's just kind of gone. It's done, and I guess I'm totally okay with that. I would really be upset if they were to do like a Ghostbusters and try to make it something else.
Don't mention.
I'm sorry. I'm foreshadowing. But Back to the Future, I mean, what can I say about it? I mean, I've stated my case. I'm not that I'm trying to convince you that it's a good movie. If you agree with me, it's a great movie. But I'm looking at my list, like which one of these is my favorite movie. It's a contender for my favorite movie all time. Just because of how good it is. I mean, it's just such a solid movie. And I don't think nostalgia necessarily plays a factor in that. I just think like you could show that movie to anyone nowadays and they would love it. They would just fall in love with it.
Oh yeah, it's timeless.
It's a timeless movie, and I can't wait to show it to Logan someday. I think he'll really get a kick out of it. But yeah, it's HBO had picked up the movies recently. They were showing all three like in a row for like a couple months. So I watched them anytime it was on. I would stop and watch all three of them.
Cool.
I just loved them.
I thought it was really cool that we saw the second one in the theater. I know.
Yeah.
And as soon as it ended, there was a trailer for part 3.
You're right. I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
That, to my knowledge. Let's talk about that too, because at the end of the first one, they actually put "to be continued," which is kind of an unusual thing to do in a movie.
Yeah, and which it's like you took that as kind of like, okay, well they left themselves open. If it does well, and they'll make another one, or it's just like one of those things. Maybe it'll never happen.
Right. And it did insanely well, but it still took them like 5 years to make a sequel.
Yeah.
And that's one of those movies too, where like it felt like a movie they never would make a sequel to, because Michael J. Fox was getting older. He's not going to look boyish enough to be Marty, He did. He pulled it off in the movie, but he was already off doing like very adult movies, like, you know, stuff. It felt like he was trying to get away from that Michael P. Keaton, you know, image.
Yeah.
So it just didn't. He just never felt like it would ever happen again. And then I remember when they were like, "We're doing 2 more. Like, we're not just getting 1, we're getting 2."
Yeah, they did them back to back.
Yeah, great movies. I love them. They're just great. You could put, and because of the way that the second movie starts, just like it ended in the first one.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yep, you can watch them all 3 in a row, and just completely.
And there's like a number of scenes where you're seeing, I mean, you kind of mentioned this earlier, where you're seeing like those events from the first movie, but like at a different angle. And there's like 2 Martys, you know, you see them like running down the street.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because those actors got to play different versions of themselves. You know, like Biff, for example, got to show a lot of range. Like he was Biff from young, and he was Biff old, and he was Biff, you know, when current day Biff, but in the alternate timeline, that Biff.
Right.
And then Marty got to play like himself in the Old West, and Doc was always just himself. Even when he was like in the 80s,
he's pretty much the same.
He's pretty much the same always. Even in the Old West, of course, it's the same Doc, just shot back in time. Right. But you know, even in the 50s, when you see him, he's like, I still got all my hair. Like, he just looks the same. Yeah. So I love that about it. It's so familiar and great. You know, Marty looks the same all the way through. But I just want to go watch that movie right now. let's just watch it and do a commentary right now. But anyways, I'm gonna stop gushing about Back to the Future and pass the ball over to you.
Okay.
For your number 3.
Yeah. So my third one, and you know, I probably, we can't really talk a whole at length really. I don't think about this, but I mean, it's just a really classic film. 1954. Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai.
Of course.
Yeah. And you've never even seen it, have you?
No. Remember when we were talking in the E3 prediction show, and we were talking about like you wouldn't like it. I remember asking you about it. You just were like, you wouldn't like it.
You could try, but you'd get bored. I think it's long. It's very long.
How old were you when you first saw it?
I was old. I was in my 20s at least. I don't remember exactly. And
so okay, in my mind, because I know how like when you were like teenager, you suddenly became very interested in like Japanese culture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your room reflected it. You know, you had like, you know, the Zen stuff and the balls, and you know, you were learning to write a bit. You know, so you became really. It became a very big thing for you. So that this had nothing to do with that then.
Yeah, I mean it was during / a little after that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you learn about it?
Probably just from different things, because it
came out in 1954, right?
Well, yeah, and I don't think it was Seven Samurai in particular. There's another Kurosawa movie that.
Who is he? Is he a director?
Castle, I forget the name of it. Yeah, that's the director.
Okay.
That.
Is he like the Japanese Spielberg of that era or something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, but Star Wars is. It's a pretty well-known fact that there's a lot of influence. Star Wars has a lot of influence from Kurosawa films.
Okay.
And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and
I've heard other like that John Carter and remember that movie when it came out? That was supposedly a pretty big influence, like that story in Star Wars. But I didn't know that.
Yeah, but like I say, it's not Seven Samurai. It's another one, and I forget which one it is.
Although with the Master and the Padawan and all that stuff, it totally makes sense.
Well, but that Master and Padawan stuff didn't come till later. I'm talking about 1977 Star Wars.
Guess you're right.
I'm talking about A New Hope. But, I mean, yeah, like I say, I don't really have a lot to say about it. I'm not as good as talking in depth about, you know, films like you are. But, I mean, basically, the plot is like this village it's being ransacked by these bandits, and you know they need help from these samurai. There's this like one samurai that he goes and recruits other samurai to help out, and they save the day. That's like
Okay.
the very, very short.
The short and sweet.
For like,
So there's a hero, and there's a protagonist, an antagonist, a conflict, and they save the day.
but
It's in black and white, then I assume, right?
but they don't all make it at the end though, and it's sad. And
Is it bloody? Is it real violent for its time?
Well, I mean, it's not bloody. There's fighting, there's sword fighting, people die, but it's not like
So like when in a western, they'll get shot and they'll just hold themselves and go
yeah,
like
it's like
fall
that.
off like a ridge or something.
Yeah, because I mean, there's this one scene where they're having like a duel, and so they're having like with swords, and it's all swords, and and they slice, and the guy just kind of
Right.
falls over, but there's not like it's
Not like Kill Bill.
yeah, it's not like that.
That would be amazing. What's the runtime on that movie? Is it pretty long?
It's long.
Okay.
It's I don't see where it says it. I bet I can find. 207 minutes.
Oh damn! Yeah, that is pretty long. That's it's going on like 3 hours.
Yeah, and there's an intermission in the middle of it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, like as you're watching the movie, there's like one spot where it'll just kind of like cut, and it'll.
Let's
show.
all go to the movie lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
If I remember right, it just kind of like shows like some curtains, and
Yeah.
like it's just kind of playing like some like this drums or boom boom. It's
Nice. Very Japanese.
Yeah, very Japanese style kind of.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, go get up, go to the bathroom, get a drink, whatever.
Right. Now, is that a movie that you could find like on Netflix or something, like, or is that just really obscure?
I don't know if Netflix has it.
Okay, because that'd be like my way of seeing it, unless I just like straight up like went and found it online somewhere and watched it illegally.
Oh yeah, 3.5 hours.
Wow, that's long. Now it's subtitled, I assume, right? It's not dubbed, or is it? Is it dubbed?
Subtitle. I doubt there's a dub version. I don't know of one.
I always prefer to watch the subtitled version because the dubbing you can't get there's no the authenticity in the voice, even though I can't understand what they're saying. Like you can feel in their voice, like the emotion. I guess you don't really get the emotion so much from the American dubbed actors.
Yeah, I mean the dubs are just. You just laugh at them.
Well, not like Godzilla bad. But I mean, if you watch like a movie that's like they're trying their hardest to dub the lips as good as they can, I feel like they're just trying to make that shitty.
Right.
Hello. It's like, what? You're not even trying.
We will fight.
No. This is for the people who are listening. We're just like moving our lips like a ton. One word. You guys know. Yeah, you're right. I mean, since I had no knowledge of this movie when you provided the list, I can't speak to it at all.
I mean, being a movie buff, I would almost think that you'd have to watch it.
I want to watch it. I do.
But I'm afraid you'd be bored.
Every now and then I like to go and watch an old movie like Citizen Kane or some really big influential movie that by today's standards would be boring. But I don't see it that way. I like to look like because there's pioneers in it. It may not be special effects, but composition or the 3-act. Like when the concept of the 3-act movie. These movies are classics not because they hold up necessarily very great by today's standards, but just because they were pioneers at the time. So like I can appreciate that. Now, if this movie was such a big influence on movies like Star Wars, then I gotta check it out.
If there was like a class on like movies and like concepts in movies and whatever, I can like totally see this being like subject material.
Yeah.
残るは13。これは全部フライデー。その前を通り過ぎると同時に追い打ちをかけて 村のついで挟み撃ちだ。勝負はこの一撃で決まる。
Good point. That's a good way to put it. It's I don't find a lot of time for things that I would like to. Like I think gaming suffers for me the most. Like I'll buy games and then just not play them as much as I like. But movies, I still try to carve out time. So I'm gonna put it on my list of movies to check out, and I'll have to let you know after I see it. It's since it's so long, it might be one of those movies that I may stop at intermission and finish it another time. But that is a pretty big investment in time right there, 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
But no, being in black and white or subtitling, none of that stuff would deter me from watching it. And I know you know me pretty well, and maybe I will find it super boring.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I think it'll be boring because it's black and white.
Yeah.
That's not even a factor.
But it's the cultural thing. Like
I mean, heck, you got I think a movie on your list is in black and white.
I do. Black and white has no effect whatsoever.
By artistic choice.
Yeah, by artistic choice, not because of the limitations. Back in the 50s, that's just what they filmed on, was black and white, 8mm and all that stuff. Okay, well, is there anything else that we could mention? Seven Samurai?
The Hidden Fortress. That's the movie. I was like, it's something Castle, but yeah, Hidden Fortress is a 1958 Akira Kurosawa movie that had a lot of influence on Star Wars.
Oh, okay. Now, have you seen that one?
I have not. Yeah,
okay.
I would like to.
Now, is that a movie that you picked up at like Suncoast Video one day or something? Like, how did you come about that movie? Because it seems like a very Suncoasty kind of thing.
It's just one of those things that I heard. It was a very good movie. And so I probably did buy it at Suncoast.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably found it
because
there,
it's pre-Amazon and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So if you were looking for some obscure title, that's about the only option you had, really.
That's probably where I got it.
Yeah. And they did have those areas typically in the back of the store where, when they split it up by genre, but Suncoast was like the very first place that really kind of gave you a place to pick up like anime and things, which you were real big into anime. I really ought to give anime some sort of try. I just don't know how much I would be into it. I'm just not sure. But a lot of people that are friends of mine everything else about us like overlaps so much in so many different aspects. But like when they'll get to anime, like I just have to tune out because like I just don't get it. Yeah. So I don't know. Is it just like the art that interests you the most, or
I think it kind of starts there.
Yeah,
with anime at least. Yes,
I feel like they really
I do that
take
with comics all the time.
Yeah.
Like
Transformer we've talked about
comics.
that. Right.
Yeah, like it. I start with the art. If it's awful art, I can't even read it.
Yeah, gotcha.
So that'll catch my eye, and then I'll start either reading it or watching it or whatever. And if I get into it, then I get into it strong. And
what would you say your favorite anime series is? Like if you were to tell somebody who was thinking about getting into anime, like start here, where would you say?
Well, to ask me my favorite and to at the end,
that's two questions. You're right.
And then the second is like totally different.
I'm curious about both because I don't know if we're ever going to have a topic on anime. To be honest,
well, I would say my favorite. I'm really divided between two.
Can I guess? Raw and a Half.
Yes.
Dragon Ball Z.
Well, I don't know if I would just say Dragon Ball. I would
lump
them all together.
Gotcha.
Because there's Dragon Ball Z,
but am I right?
Dragon Ball Super, but yes. So yeah, I'm having a hard time trying to decide whether Ram the Half's my favorite or Dragon Ball as a whole is my favorite. I want to say Ranma.
Ranma, yeah. Well, I guess Ranma because I remember seeing your collection of books, I guess it was. Yeah. And it made it like it just kind of blended all together, like movies will do that sometimes where they'll kind of form a picture and.
But then to go on and somebody that has never been into anime to get them started,
right?
Get them started on a 1990s anime series, that is not relevant at all today,
right?
Probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
So,
You're probably right. So that's a difficult one. So do you not really keep up with anime anymore then?
not at all.
Okay,
I
okay.
have like no idea.
See, because a lot of people say Cowboy Bebop.
I love Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, a lot of people say Cowboy Bebop. So, and
You could probably get into that.
Yeah.
You, for you, I'd say go ahead and give that a try.
Okay, I might have to give that a shot. Because it's like one of those things. Like so many people that I trust, they can't be wrong. It's got to be something there, and I just haven't been introduced in a proper way. Because I know that you're a big fan of Rama Half, and you love the humor and everything. Like I know,
You would not get it wrong.
You're so damn judgmental. Fair enough.
Well,
and to be fair, you've tried.
I was just gonna say I've tried it.
You've tried it. You've tried it. So with good reason.
And
You're
you
saying.
sat there like, I don't get this.
You were like trying. You were like, this is funny because you were really trying. I appreciate it. But this is funny. These are the parts I think are funny, and I'm just like. I just don't understand. It's a panda, I guess. What's going on? What's the deal with this? So and to be fair, I probably was just a little too close-minded about it. I might be a little more open-minded nowadays.
Yeah, and I believe that.
Yeah,
but I still don't think you like it.
Okay, all right. So I guess we'll move on to the next pick.
Okay.
So for me, it's another 80s classic, and it's another movie that I would argue that could potentially be like a perfect film. And it's part of a series, but it's the first. So I'm going to say Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones. Yeah. The classic, like serialized, Harrison Ford, fresh off Han Solo. He's been in 2 Star Wars movies at this point. And it's Lucas and Spielberg. And he's just this. Was
Empire already?
Yeah, Empire came out in 80. And Raiders of the Lost Ark came out in 81.
Okay.
So he had two stints as Han Solo. So like Han Solo is just one of my favorite characters ever anyway. As with a lot of people, like, that was what Harrison Ford was. And then it wasn't until Indiana Jones came along, and now suddenly he had like these 2 big popular characters. Like he is Han Solo and he is Indiana Jones. And there's some overlap there's like this machismo, there's this confidence, there's this humor.
I'm going after that truck. Oh. I don't know. I'm making this up as I go.
But just to talk about Indiana Jones, so he's an archaeologist, and it's in the 40s, I guess, is when because it's World War II era, basically.
Yeah.
His nemesis. He's basically trying to beat the Nazis from finding the Holy Grail. No, the Ark of the Covenant. Ark in the Covenant was the first one.
Right.
But the great thing about Indiana Jones is, like, he is an archaeologist, so there's this cool, like, kind of educational element to it. Like, I'm learning all of these things about these neat artifacts from, like, whether it be, like, biblical times, typically is when they were focused on, these biblical objects. Mm-hmm. And there were, there's 4 of them, but the original 3 is what I typically tend to focus on. And in the first one, it was the Ark of the Covenant, and the second one was, like the crystals or whatever, like the stones. Yeah, and that had nothing to do with like, Nazism or whatever. But then the third one, they kind of went back to it, and that's the Holy Grail, and then with Sean Connery and all that. And I could almost say Last Crusade is I love it so much too.
This says Raiders was set in 1936.
Okay, 1936. So I just love the look. I love that you get to see all these different locations. The action is just fantastic. The music and the score is just so good. Mm-hmm. I love that he's a real charismatic, confident guy, but he has weaknesses, and he has
snakes.
Son of a bitch.
He hates snakes. He's bad at relationships. He's kind of a loner. He's a professor in a college. So, like, like, on one hand, he's this professor at a university. And then, then the next thing you know, he's in full-on adventurer mode.
Yeah, he just hops on a plane.
Yeah. He's got the fedora. Well, it's not a fedora, I guess. He's got the hat and the...
A fedora.
Is it a fedora? Okay. So he's got the hat and he basically has his superhero uniform on.
And his whip.
And his whip. You know, like he chooses a whip as his weapon of choice. And he's got these, you know, confidants, you know, like there's Brody and there's also the guy in India. Like, Indy, you know, like that guy.
I can't think of his
The big guy. I can't think of his name, but then of course you got oh God, what's her name? Karen.
Marion.
Marion, yes. Marion is this like great. It's like Bond, you know. You got like a different girl in each movie, and they're all like these strong-willed, smart equals to Indiana. You know, like she's just as tough and hard-nosed and smart as he is. Thank you. But you know, like as stupid as it sounds, like I felt like I'm learning things. I feel like I'm learning things as I'm watching this movie. You know, there's history. That's part of it. There's just all this history enveloped in this movie. So it's this fictional character trying to find this very, you know, real, I guess, artifact in this very real time period, and it just works so good. Every action, like it starts out with the very iconic boulder scene, you know, when he's like, you know, he's like, and he's got the sandbag, and that whole scene was iconic. I flipped when I first saw that. Now, I didn't see this movie until much later, actually. I saw Temple of Doom first.
Really?
Yep. And I didn't like it because it grossed me out.
I don't think I saw Temple of Doom until later.
Yeah, Temple of Doom.
I maybe even saw the third one before Temple of Doom.
Oh, really?
I think
Interesting.
so, maybe. I think it was one of those things where, you know, mom and dad heard about like the scene in Temple of Doom, you know, where he takes the heart out and just figured that was too much for the kids and whatever. And
now that was a PG movie.
That's probably why.
That was a PG movie, and because of that movie, it's the only reason why we have PG-13.
Is it that movie?
It's that movie.
That's like the Mortal Kombat of like, movies.
Yeah, because that movie has so many intense scenes. You know, yeah, there's the part with the heart and the sacrificing, and then there's like they're like eating the snake and eating the brains.
That was so gross.
It was so nasty, and it really kind of traumatized me.
I think the snake, where you split them up in the
yes,
come out, was grosser than the monkey brains.
That was way grosser.
Yeah,
way gross because they like slice it down the side and it looks like a real snake, and then all the little small those are real snakes. I think
that was gross.
That looked like real snakes. I don't think they could have pulled that off in any effect in any way. But it's so nasty. Yeah, that whole dinner scene was so funky. But so that movie, I think, which it came out in like 84, 85 or something. I saw, you know, like that was one of those movies, like if we were to do a topic on movies I saw too young as a kid, that would for sure be one of the movies on my list. Because I saw it young and I just turned off. Like there was something about Indiana that I liked. The first part of the movie is totally cool. And even the parts where they're in that chamber that's like they're trapped and there's all the centipedes and bugs and oh my God, it's so gross. But the movie starts out like great, you know, like there's the action scene where they're like he has the poison that he took and he's like following around the vial of antidote.
Club Obi-Wan.
What?
Yeah.
Is that what it was called?
Yeah, that club that they're in the beginning of the movie, like when they're in like China or Hong Kong.
Yeah, like because they need short round.
It was Club Obi-Wan.
I didn't know that. Does it say that anywhere?
I think so.
Oh my God,
somewhere,
that's amazing. Well, that's the Lucas, I guess, influence. But I loved that as a kid. Watching all that stuff was great. But as soon as they get into the part where he's in the jungle and they come across all of that, ooh, no. So I did not have a desire to see the first one. And my brother, who was working at a video store at the time, kind of gave me a bit of an education on classic movies during this one summer. And he's like, you got to see Raiders of the Lost Ark. You'll love it. And I was probably 12 or 13, I guess. So I was just perfect for that, you know. I was right up my alley. It was a perfect age to watch a movie like that. You know, you're learning some of this stuff in history. I'm familiar with Han Solo, like I said. I was in the bag for Harrison Ford. I mean, I was sold on him. And but I never gave it a chance. And, you know, so we watched it, and, man, I just loved it. It was pure movie magic. I just couldn't, you know, like, every moment of that movie I just loved. And I was just like, you're right. And then around that time is when Last Crusade came out. So he was probably wanting me to see that so we could go see Last Crusade. So, you know, around 88, 89, I guess, is when I first saw Raiders of the Lost Ark. So, like, 7 or 8 years after it came out.
I saw it pretty early. It was, already on VHS, I think, when I saw it. I want to say we were at like one of my dad's like friends or coworkers or somebody's like house that they had it. And this is like actually the same way I saw Star Wars too for the first time. It was like one of my dad's like friends had it on VHS or something.
Yeah.
And and we watched it there. And but yeah, I thought it was great.
Oh my gosh, so wonderful.
Got scared at the end with the melty faces.
Oh geez, yeah.
But as a kid, it was like I thought that was like cool, but like at the same time,
yeah, it totally like it looks so phony baloney, but at the same time you're buying it completely.
Yeah.
Because everything else in the movie is so authentic feeling. Like the part where they find the, he finds the map to the city and he puts the staff and it shoots the area where the actual Ark is located. And they spend the night like digging it up and they go down in there and that's where all the snakes are, of course. Mm-hmm. And he and Marion get like stuck down in there and they have to fight. I mean, like all of it felt very authentic. Like in my mind, in my impressionable young boy mind, I'm like, this is real. This feels real, as goofy as it sounds. Because we don't know where these artifacts are. It's fun to pretend. And, like, if you present it to me in a very authentic way, I'm going to buy it.
Right.
I've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark in re-releases. Like, sometimes movie theaters will do, like, re-releases of classic movies.
Yeah.
And the instant I heard that they were doing it for that, I mean, and you know how they do it. They only do it for, like, a day or something.
Right.
I was there.
Yeah.
So I got to see Raiders of the Lost Ark in the movie theater. It was wonderful. I loved it.
Yeah, nice.
And I'd seen it a million times, but again, just like the scene where, Indiana like meets the guy with the big sword and he's doing his impressive display and then he just pulls his gun out and shoots him.
Yeah, right.
That whole scene. I was cheering, man. I was just like, I was so into it, even then, and I'd seen it 100 times. But it's a great trilogy. Even Crystal Skull, like I know people give it a lot of crap. I enjoyed it fine. Like I didn't even mind the aliens all that much because that's just a Spielbergian thing to do.
Well, and I like Crystal Skull until the end. Showing the spaceship takeoff was just too much.
It's a bit, okay, yeah. You didn't need to see all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I found Shia LaBeouf very irritating in that movie too. Like he's not a worthy Indiana Jones successor.
Yeah,
and I'm glad that he didn't become that. And they're about to film the 5th movie. So, and I'm curious because even then, back when that movie came out, you're like, how are they going to make this movie with him? He's an old man, but he pulled it off very well. He was still doing stunts pretty decently, but now he's even much older than, like the dude's breaking his leg running in on the set forming the Force Awakens. I mean, he's an old brittle guy, right. But they think he can do it. Spielberg's going to do this thing, and it's obviously got to be the last. So I'm curious. I don't want to see a successor. I want to wrap it up. Like they wrapped it up so well at Last Crusade. Like Indiana Jones 4 is one of those movies that like I would read about in magazines for years. Say like how Spielberg wanted to make the movie, and I don't know if it was like Harrison Ford was hanging up the process or not. Probably was, because I mean, how do you reopen a chapter? It was like it ended so perfectly with Sean Connery and they're riding off in the sunset, and like we named the dog Indiana. Like it's all those great lines. It ended so perfectly, and then they reopened it with the 4th one. And I guess they made it because they felt like they had a good story, and it wasn't bad. And they clearly were meaning to pass the torch.
Yeah, I mean, and when that movie was coming out, I was totally getting into like the whole Crystal Skull thing because like they would show like these documentaries about crystal skulls and stuff like all the time building up for like this movie. Yeah, and
it's a big deal.
Yeah,
and it was a big hit.
And so I was like totally buying into the whole thing and loved it, and thought that was a great concept. But
it wasn't bad.
Like I say, I just feel like
a bit of a cop out at the end.
Yeah, that was just a little too much. I mean, and seeing like the alien skeletons and stuff, I'm totally fine with that.
Right.
But just the ship taking off at the end, was just too much.
Well, they couldn't resist, I guess, with CG and being a place where we are. You can show things you never could before, I guess.
I just wish it would have been like just leave a little more mystery to it there.
My hope was with 5, they get back to like a more of like some sort of biblical artifact.
Yeah.
I don't know what artifact they could go to at this point. Maybe they find the Ark or something, not like the Ark of the Covenant, but they find the Ark.
Oh, like Noah's Ark?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, something.
Yeah.
I hope they get back to that, get back to the, boots on the ground, like something. I don't know.
The 10 Commandments.
Yeah, the tablets. I don't know, something. The Nazis got to be involved. There just has to be Nazis. I don't know how they're going to do it. It's going to be weird because of his age, and surely they're into the 50s by now, I guess. Well, they were in the 50s in the last movie, Crystal Skull. Just judging from like the motorcycles and like the cars.
Greaser stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the greaser stuff. So they're going to have to be coming up on the 60s. I don't know what they're going to do, but I hope they get back to that. That's what I really hope. And I'm on board. I'm going to buy my ticket, and I'm going to go see the movie. Even if the initial trailers don't look great, I'm going to go see it. Because I love Indiana Jones. He's a great, great character.
57.
57. Okay. Thanks for looking that up. So if that's 57 and that movie came out, 5 or 6 years ago, so we're going to be in the 60s, right? You'd think.
Yeah.
It's hard to make people look younger unless you do that whole like thing they do in the Marvel movies. They're not going to do that for the whole movie.
Yeah.
So it's going to have to be the 60s.
Yeah.
So whatever that could be. I have faith that they have a good story or they wouldn't be going forward with it. And so Spielberg's ready to do this thing. Harrison Ford's ready to do this thing. Let's make it a great movie and end it on a good note. All right, Nick, let's I'm going to throw it back to you, sir. It's going to be your number 4. God, I did it again, man. It's classic.
Oh yeah, and then I see the back of the box right there. It made me think, just all that classic where they would show,
yeah,
like,
where they're traveling.
Yeah, had show that line like where they go, and that's classic Indiana Jones thing. I love it.
It is very classic Indiana Jones. I love too when they parody it too, and like they'll have like a cartoon character riding the line or something, something silly. But God, I love Indiana Jones. It's such a great, great series.
All right, well now I kind of mentioned before that we'd get to that because I forget what it was that you were saying. You were saying the criteria was that we have to own the movies to be like our favorite,
right?
And what I was kind of getting to was that some of my favorites that we'll get to. Here's where I start, where it's like, how many versions do you own? So I've got at least 2 of the Dark Crystal. So this is my
the classic Jim Henson '82 movie.
1982, right?
Yeah.
And when it came out with like the 25th anniversary edition, I had to get that, even though I already had this one.
You don't have it on Blu-ray?
I guess not.
Yeah.
Is it on Blu-ray?
It has to be.
I'll buy it.
It has to be. It has to be on there could be a 4K transfer version.
If there's a Blu-ray version, I'll get it, because when I pulled these out, I was like, man, I want to watch this.
Yeah.
And so if it's on Blu-ray, I want to watch it on Blu-ray.
Yeah, it sucks to want to like watch a movie and all you have is a DVD.
Yeah.
Because you're used to like high definition by this point. You watch something on DVD, you're just like, I'm so spoiled.
Right. Yeah. So I'll look for that. I want it.
So Dark Crystal came up once before already in one of our previous episodes where we were talking about creatures.
Oh, yeah. And I said I like the Skeksis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, another movie I saw too young. This is one of those.
Think?
Yeah, well, we touched upon it back then that this movie kind of freaked me out a little bit as a kid.
And I mentioned like when Fizzgig comes out of the hole.
Yeah, he
like,
pops out.
That gets me every time.
Every single time.
You know it's coming, and every time.
It is a very bizarre movie. It's kind of in that, like, you know how we've mentioned in the past, like those old Frankenbass, like Hobbit cartoons?
Yeah.
You know how there's just something there's a darkness to the style of animation.
Yeah.
There's a roughness and crudeness to it. And like this kind of falls into that for me.
This has a darkness.
Like, have you ever seen like the storyboard art of a lot of these things? Like,
I've got a whole book.
Okay. It's like it can haunt your nightmares.
Yeah.
You know, the imagery.
I know
It's so damn fascinating at the same time.
Yeah.
I saw this movie in theaters when it came out back in '82.
all I really remember is like every time it was on TV, I would catch it and watch it.
Yeah.
My first time, I don't really remember, but I loved it.
I remember so well that because there's that scene where like the elder is dying.
Yeah.
I remember that scene like yesterday. It freaked me out so
I'm trying
bad.
to remember what they're called, Urus or something.
I don't know.
I forget.
But I might have had to leave the theater. It freaked me out so bad. Now that part I don't remember, but I remember I was with like my aunt and some cousins, and you know, obviously they were older, so they were like totally prepared to watch this. You know, for me, I had no. It's not none of it is like meant to scare you. But as like a 5, I guess I would have been like 5 or 6.
Except Fizzgate popping out of the hole.
Yeah, that's a jump scare. That's a legit jump scare. And that probably wouldn't have frightened me as much. I'm sure I would have jumped, but like Fizzgig's kind of cute. He's just like a little hairy dog thing. Yeah, he's all mouth. I mean, you know, but the you know the Skeksis.
Yeah.
And the little like elfy type.
Podlings.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah, the pod people. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just this unnatural kind
They're
of.
kind of like
everything's so alien.
They can be cute but kind of creepy looking at the same time.
Yeah. I think they're really intended to not be creepy at all.
Right.
But I guess it's just like in their eyes, like there's no life there really.
Yeah.
So if they had done somebody in makeup,
well, man, and especially like that scene where, that one Skeksis that takes the essence,
taking the essence away. I was gonna say that,
and like the eyes just kind of like
it's dramatic,
and they get all like wrinkly.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Yes, and now the beam will rid you of your fears, your thoughts, your vital essence.
Yeah, they're stealing its essence. Yeah, that too. So just that imagery of seeing that character like that makes them scarier, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
But you know, it's totally in the same category as like a never-ending story. It's fantasy. It's all it is. It's fantasy, and it's Jim Henson. So Jim Henson is totally known for The Muppets, which is completely family friendly, and you know, like, and then when you think Muppets, you think like stuff like Sesame Street with puppets,
right.
You know. So like it all kind of like when you hear Jim Henson, you feel safe. There's like a safeness and a familiarity to all of his work, but like he had to have been on major acid or something.
There was like Muppets and Sesame Street.
Yeah.
And then crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm. I just don't know. I don't get it. And then of course he came back around and did the Ninja Turtles, so all was forgiven, Jim Henson. And he's so beloved. Now, do you know anything about like his how did he feel about this movie? Do you know, like watching? I'm sure you've probably watched documentaries and stuff on this movie that I haven't. You know, how did like in his body of work, where did he see this movie? Because I don't think it was like a great success.
I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the things I've watched about it weren't really, what his thoughts weren't really the things that interest me. It was more of like the making of it kind of thing that interests me.
Yeah.
So
it's a beautiful movie,
yeah.
like the costumes and the creatures. You know, and if you're, as we know, you were really big into creatures always.
Yeah.
So it's just
the Gartham.
Yeah.
Those like big beetle.
The beetle things. Yeah. Is that what they're called? I was going to ask what they were called.
Yeah, they're cool.
They're very cool and very, very detailed, and just it. I mean, it's just fantasy. It's like Tolkien, all that stuff.
What's her name? The blue lady with like the one eye.
Yeah.
Ogra. She creeped me out though.
Ask what the Great Conjunction is. What's the Great Conjunction?
What's the Great Conjunction? You tell me.
The Great Conjunction is the end of the world. Oh, the beginning?
Most things about that movie would creep me out. But I would like to show Logan that movie now. I think he's at an age where he could probably process it. And he saw Neverending Story and it didn't bother him. And that movie is another one of those movies that not for me personally, but a lot of people who saw that as young people, it kind of had a similar effect that Dark Crystal had on me. Kind of frightened them a little bit.
Like when the horse
well, yeah. And that was my first question because he saw it. He saw the never. Oh yeah, you never even see it really until you see him at the end, don't you?
He kills the wolf at the end. Like the wolf jumps at him.
And
stabs him with a.
But most of it's like POV.
Something.
Like you just see him running towards them. But yeah, so it was great. We were having a conversation at dinner, and he was telling me about this movie that he saw, and never in a million years would I even have imagined Neverending Story. I'm picturing whatever Disney movies out at the time. So he's like, yeah, it was really cool. I liked it a lot. There was this, there was this boy, and there was this white dragon that he flew around on, and he's like talking about it. And Logan's not great at describing things, but he happened to be describing this movie really well. Happened to be, and I'm listening, and I'm like, did you just see the Neverending Story? He was like, yes. And it's funny when you talk to a kid because anytime you know something that they learn, they're blown away. Like, how do you know about that?
Right.
He's like, how do you know about a Neverending Story? And I'm like, that's one of my favorite movies as a kid. You saw Neverending Story? That movie was when I was a kid. How are you watching this movie? And obviously, as teachers our age, makes sense, And I was like, so I got to that point. I was like, did it scare you? No, it didn't scare me. What about that part with the horse? Didn't faze him. Didn't faze him at all. So, and it didn't traumatize me necessarily as a kid either, but that's the scene that everybody freaks out. The horse. It's very depressing.
It's like the rock biter. He's cool.
I love the rock biter. The big turtle thing. He's like sneezing and he keeps going off the rock.
Oh, of course we're not talking about.
No, I know. Now I just want to put Neverending Story on my list. That is a classic movie. But yeah, back to Dark Crystal. There's parallels. It's the only reason I keep thinking about it. There's certainly parallels to that movie. But yeah, Dark Crystal, I like that movie, but I guess just for the reason that it kind of did freak me out a little bit as a kid, there's always that in the background with me, I suppose. I mean, I've watched the movie and I don't get scared, but you know how things sometimes they psychologically, I guess for lack of a better word, scar you a bit.
Yeah.
And even though you're you're totally emotionally mature enough to process what you're watching is not real. All of it's fake. It's fantasy. It's meant for kids at the end of the day, but it still affects you in a weird way. So that movie's there with me. And I know that movie too got recently released in theaters, and I'm sad you didn't get to see it because I know you said you wanted to go see it.
I wanted to. It's like you say. It's like this one time.
Yeah. They'll show it one day, and they don't advertise it like other movies. You just have to be on top of it.
Yeah.
So, and we even talked about going to see it, and then we even made plans, kind of.
Well, yeah. When I first heard about it, I was like, I'm absolutely doing that. And then
I think it was the day of.
I realized though that the theater I thought it was going to be showing at, it actually was not going to be at that theater. It's going to be at another theater.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because that's how they do.
So then things just got complicated, and I was like, well, shoot.
It was playing at a theater that was out of the way.
Yeah.
Oh, well. All right, well, Dark Crystal, what else can we say about that? It's something you should definitely check out. It's very artistically unique.
It's absolutely one that I would have on my ranked favorites.
Yeah.
I was kind of saying, let's be honest, Popeye's not really one. I love it, but but Dark Crystal would be.
Fair enough. All right, I guess we'll roll over to my number 4. And number 4, for me, another movie from the 80s. Oh, I actually was prepared. This is a movie that a lot of times things get kind of compared to a lot nowadays. 80s is kind of in nowadays, and with shows like Stranger Things, and even movies like It, like the horror movie It. I hear this movie get referenced a lot. It's like this movie, but with this.
Right.
And that movie is The Goonies from 1985. Steven Spielberg presents. It was actually It wasn't directed by Steven Spielberg. It was directed by
Richard Donner film.
Richard Donner, yeah. So from Superman.
It says it right on the front.
And a screenplay by Chris Columbus, who is famous also. You know, he did like Home Alone and, you know, a whole bunch of other 80s movies. So the pedigree is amazing. The cast is great. The kids are great.
Yeah, I mean, I
Sean
love,
Austin,
like, all the kids.
Yeah, Sean Austin is like the leader. His big brother, who's Thanos now. What's his name? I'm drawing a blank. Josh Brolin.
Yeah.
Plays his bigger brother.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And then of course there's Corey Feldman, who was in a lot of 80s movies at the time. He played Mouth.
Short Round.
There's Short Round.
Data.
He
was my favorite.
He was an 80s staple. He was an 80s mainstay.
Hey, Data, don't mess this one up. And prepare for the wings of flight. Oh! Screen door! Mikey, the screen door!
Then you had the girls. Oh, Chunk. Chunk is the best.
It's Chunk. I just saw the most amazing thing in my entire life. First, you gotta do the truffle shuffle. Come on. Do it. Come on. Do it.
Chunk, I guess, you know, if I'm looking at myself, like I kind of pictured Chunk in myself. I guess not just because I was a chubbier kid, but he talked a lot, you know, that he was tall tales always.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he formed that really unique relationship with Sloth. But this movie just starts out so amazing. It starts out with like a bank robbery, you know, and then there's the Fratellis, who are like the bad guys, and then the mom, she's that classic like 80s, like, I can't think of the actor's name, but she was in a bunch of 80s stuff, like Throw Mama from the Train. Yeah, she played her, so she was like the king. She was like the kingpin of the family. And they own that. It's essentially like a treasure hunt, I guess you'd say. You know, the kids find that map. It's the kind of thing you just wish would happen to you. You know, you can imagine having like your group of friends like at that age. I guess they're like early teens, you know, 12, 13, I guess, in that age. So the world's very big to you, but they live in this small town, and they need a miracle. They need to save their home. They find that map up in the basement. Now that whole like attic scene was great. Not basement, but the attic. I love all the kids had such great chemistry in that movie. And this there's a commentary with the Goonies. I'm sure it's probably the same commentary you can pick up on Blu-ray, but they have all the kids show up as adults. And they talk about the movie. And I love commentaries. I try to listen to them as often as I can. Sometimes you can get a lot of valuable information from the movie. Like there's some really, really good commentaries, like stuff you never knew. Sort of like pre-internet, like all that stuff's available on the internet. But when DVDs were first coming out, like commentaries were like a big selling factor. And this is one of the best ones. All of the kids showed up except for like one, I think. And it might have been Feldman, but I'm not positive. But yeah, as adults, they talk about the movie, and it's really fascinating. But it's just like an adventure movie. It's all it is. You know, they go underground. It starts out like just at a restaurant, and it's like one of those like Journey to the Center of the Earth. Like you're just getting deeper and deeper and deeper into it, to the point they get to a point basically where they can't turn back, and they don't want to turn back because they're trying to find the treasure of One-Eyed Willie, right? That's the whole thing, is we got to find the treasure of One-Eyed Willie because we need the money to save the house. Which is just like a classic device from 80s movies, you know, like we got to do this thing to get the money to save the house or whatever. So adults don't really feature prominently in this movie, which is another like classic staple, like kids kind of thing. Like if there are adults, they're either real bumbling or don't help at all, or in this case, they're the Fratellis, which they're kind of bumbling. Like there's scenes where they're like slipping on logs and falling on their balls, you know, like that kind of stuff. But the stakes, like as they get deeper into this maze, like the stakes raise, they get more dangerous and almost die in a couple times. And like it's like one of those like coming of age things where like there's girls and boys, and they had that whole scene where they're like in the waterfall area and they kind of go off to the side and they kiss. They think it's somebody different. It's really, well, they thought it was the older brother, but it was really his younger brother.
Yeah, it ended up being Mikey.
Yeah. But it's just one of those flicks where I would recommend any younger person to watch this movie no matter what. It's another timeless flick, I think. It's another example of pure movie magic for me. And again, it's a movie that I've heard talk of a sequel with them as adults, has never really gotten off the ground. I mean, Spielberg would be able to pull that off, I think, get them involved. I really thought it was going to happen. It did seem like there was going to be a movie. But maybe they shouldn't touch it. It's just another one of those movies. Maybe they shouldn't touch it. I remember seeing this on video. Remember seeing the... I don't know if it was this image or not. I don't think it was. I think it might have been a different image. When I'm looking at posters and stuff, when I'm editing the video, I'll try to find the poster that I remembered from the VHS. It might have just been like Skull and Crossbones or something.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Because when you look at this, it's all the kids and they're standing over the treasure of One Eye Willie, which isn't even how they find him really. I mean, I don't think it was this. This is probably something they just did up for the DVD.
I think I first saw it like on HBO or something.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
It's another one of those movies that I can always watch anytime. I can watch it from any point, and I can end it at any point. I don't necessarily have to watch the whole movie to be satisfied, but it's just wonderful. It's great. And it all ends up where they slide down that slide, and they find this pirate ship, and the pirate ship is like to scale, like it's a real pirate ship. And it's just amazing because it's not the kind of thing you really see in movies nowadays.
Are you almost done? What? What? Oh my God. Oh, wow.
Like, you have the Pirates of the Caribbean series. I don't think those are full-scale pirate ships they're on. It's probably just some sort of partial ship on a set with green screens everywhere. But they actually built like a pirate ship and put it, it was there. Like that existed.
That's not the one, is it?
That might be it. That very well might be it.
That's the only other one I could really find.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's actually a different language. It says Los Goonies.
That image looks really familiar. Yeah, there's Josh Brolin.
Yeah, so that's Thanos.
Yeah, there's Thanos. There's Cable. I love, too, that he's sort of had this surge in popularity over the last 10, 15 years. Was he in one of the Lord of the Rings movies?
I don't know.
Okay. So you remember seeing it for the first time on HBO or whatever. Is this a movie that, I mean, obviously you have a fond affinity for this movie.
Oh, I love Goonies.
Yeah, Goonies is great. I don't even know what to say about Goonies. It's just like, if you haven't seen it, by God, watch it. By the way, we are spoiling a lot of these movies. We're sorry. If you haven't seen any of these, big time spoiler alerts. Shame on you for waiting this long, for starters. I mean, Goonies has been around for over 30 years.
I guess
what are you
we're
waiting
kind
for?
of safe because none of the movies are new by any means.
Every one of these movies are pre-2000.
1999 is like the most recent movie.
Yeah. And again, it kind of goes back to these movies are ones I saw in my formative years. A lot of them in the 80s. That was in my formative years. And I suspect movies, it's like that for everybody. Kids, people who are in their 30s look to the 90s as, and I have it, like 90s was partially, that was also part of our formative years too. But you know what I'm saying, Yeah. And then people who are in their 20s look to movies in the 2000s, There's a movie like Goonies that just means as much to them. But I maintain that this is just another one of those. It's not as perfect as Back to the Future or Raiders of the Lost Ark. By the way, Steven Spielberg is kind of the common thread we're seeing here for me. Yeah. I didn't really pick up on that right away, but 3 of my movies are Steven Spielberg jams, which shouldn't be too surprising because he's one of the masters to this day, still making movies. But I'm not gonna tie up a bunch more time on Goonies. It's one of those obvious choices, as a lot of my movies are, really. Um, it's just another pure movie magic. All my movies, that's one thing they have in common, is just pure movie magic. They unlocked something inside of me that has just stayed unlocked, and if I can ever get a taste of a feeling of those movies, I'm so happy. With Stranger Things, again, like I said, it's something that you get a strong Goonies feel to it. With it when they're kids back in the 80s, you kind of get that strong Goonies because of the chemistry of the kids. It's all about the friendships. It's all about the friendships and the kids. That's what makes it so strong. So anyway, you want to do some shout outs, Nick, since we're at that point?
Shout out time.
Yeah, you got any shout outs you want to just mention, get off your chest?
Yeah, shout out Star Wars.
Obviously Star Wars. We're not going to spin a lot. I'm glad you didn't pick. I had Star Wars jotted down for you because I think originally I was
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, Jurassic Park nearly made the list.
Yeah.
Pure movie magic, once again. For me to this day, it's like the gold standard of practical effects and the emergence of CG.
Dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs, yeah. Steven Spielberg.
I mean, Jurassic Park, the dinosaurs. I'm not like the dinosaurs, like TV show.
No, I know what you meant.
Okay.
No, not the mama. I know you didn't mean that. Earl. You're right, Nick. What a great TV show. No, I know what you meant. Like, the kids love dinosaurs. And it's funny, like, just a quick remembrance of, like, so the new Jurassic World movie is coming out, and it has a real dark, kind of scary tone to it.
It looks super scary.
Yeah. The first Jurassic Park did not necessarily advertise itself in that way.
Right.
And
it was all majestic.
Yeah, it was very majestical, and it was a Steven Spielberg movie, and there was kids in the trailer. So I remember seeing that movie opening night. There were a number of kids crying in the theater who had to be escorted out.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, like, this is scary. It was really scary. That is a tense movie, and I love it. And it didn't. I was old enough to be okay, but I always felt kind of bad for those little kids who saw that.
Like, the trailers for the new Jurassic World, it's like, it's got me excited. Like, you're real tense and everything.
Yeah.
Like, that those big claws, like, right up in that little girl's bedroom.
Yes.
But I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, like, if I had it like a kid, just watching the trailer.
Yeah.
The trailer is scary.
They're not hiding anything. They're really putting it out on Front Street. That movie is going to be too intense for younger audiences. Yeah. So I'm excited for that one. I think it's going to be good. Okay, so yeah, Jurassic Park's a good one.
Well, you got it. I already said a couple.
Oh, okay. Terminator 2.
Yeah. Predator, Terminator.
Yeah, any of those classic movies. T2 was, at one point, probably my favorite movie of all time. And movies just... Your favorite movie of all time changes almost year to year,
right?
Month to month, day to day, just to meet your mood. But that movie unlocked something to me too. It was the height of Arnold Schwarzenegger, popularity, and the effects were amazing for the time. The soundtrack was cool. I liked the Terminator, the first one. I thought it was interesting and cool. Another cool time travel movie, and it just upped the ante so much. Aliens, yeah, that was going to be my next one. And Alien 1 and 2, phenomenal movies. Just almost perfect movies.
Yeah.
Alien 1 especially. Alien 1 is just almost a perfect movie. It deserves to be on anybody's top list. And Aliens 2, Aliens, the sequel, is great in a whole another way. But I think it's another one of those movies that just stresses me out too much. Like, I love those movies. They stress me the shit out.
Really?
Yeah, they really do, because they're so tense. So yeah, there's those. I'd mentioned Boogie Nights a couple times.
Yeah.
You're like, Boogie Nights? I'm like, yeah, because that movie was very, very unique at the time. It was this awesome ensemble cast movie. The subject matter is very kind of unusual, like he's a porn star. Mark Wahlberg blew up from this movie. Burt Reynolds was phenomenal. John C. Reilly was hilarious. William H. Macy was great. It's such a funny movie. It's like sometimes like uncomfortable situations just tend to make you laugh because you don't know what else to do. That's like this whole movie. Everything about the movie is so uncomfortable and awkward. You have to laugh. It just makes me laugh. So I really, really appreciate that movie. It nearly made my list. I don't know, Spaceballs.
No, Spaceballs.
Again, at one point, it was my all-time favorite movie. We used to watch that all the time together. That was kind of one of our deals, you know. Like we'd watch Spaceballs. You know, like it's been a while since we've seen Spaceballs. Let's watch Spaceballs.
I remember there was like a girl I used to work with that I was saying that, you know, that Spaceballs is like the best movie ever. And because I found out she'd never seen it.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got to watch Spaceballs. It's so funny. It's the best movie.
Yeah. Girls don't like Spaceballs.
Yeah. That's when I learned that.
I remember when I first started dating Laura, she came over to your house and we watched it. And she was like, we were early on enough in the relationship that she would just go along with stuff.
Yeah.
She wouldn't watch that now. But I mean, for us, it was natural. I mean, it was like a Star Wars parody. We liked Mel Brooks. It was funny.
But yeah, this girl came back and she didn't watch it. She came back and told me she watched it. It was like
so stupid.
So stupid.
I don't know. I've seen the movie recently. It holds up still pretty well for me. Ludicrous speed, go! You know, like all of the jokes still make me laugh.
Colonel Sanders, prepare ship.
What's the matter, Colonel Sanders? Chicken? Buckle this. Yeah, right. All that makes me laugh still. I mean, it's just so funny. The dink 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 dink, those little like guys, you know, like the Mel Brooks, the Schwartz, and everything. Everything was just great.
See your shorts is as big as mine.
I hate it when my shorts gets twisted. And he like kills the guy off set, breaking the fourth wall.
Suck.
It's Mega Mate, sir. She's gone from suck to blow. That is like Monty Python level quotability for me. You know, I love Mel Brooks. And then I guess one final movie I'll mention is Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh, okay.
Watched it. Yeah, right. Ferris Bueller's Day Off to me is just such a great movie, and I've watched. Now, this is one of those movies where if I were to strictly make this movie on by the number of times I've watched it, this movie would have to be on the list because I've seen it countless times. Spaceballs, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Back to the Future, those are movies I've seen a gazillion times. But anyways, those are my shout outs. I'm just happy to mention them. What's your number 5, Nick? Because we don't know.
Yeah. Number 5. Oh, nope. Not that one.
Oh, you son of a bitch. You planned that.
Now, I said before that I can judge it by how many times I've bought it.
So. You're right.
And when I pulled all these out, I realized, I've got it like at least one more time than I thought I did.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Ghostbusters.
Ivan Reitman's Ghostbusters. The classic.
And
1984.
It's interesting because this is even one that I don't even know how it started, but it's like I fell in love with it day one, never even seen it before, because I remember like looking in the newspaper for like the movie listings and just looking just to see the listing for Ghostbusters.
Oh, you remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I would look in like, we'd get like the Sunday paper like every week. And like every week I would just like look for Ghostbusters and like,
no kidding.
There it is.
So did you get to see it at theater?
I didn't see it in the theater.
But we got to see it later.
Well, yes.
Me, you, and
when
Chris.
It was re-released in the theater like, a couple years ago or whatever. Yeah.
Again, in one of those situations where they had a limited. That was a treat, man.
Yeah, I love seeing Ghostbusters in the theater then. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't until it came out on like HBO or whatever that I finally saw it for the first time. And even then, and I remember Mom and Dad, like Mom saying that they're going to watch it first just to be sure that they think it's okay for me.
And they still approved it? The Hell Dogs were scary. And
they said there's a couple scenes where it might be kind of scary, but they approved it. Yeah. And they let me watch it.
Good for them, man. Good for them.
But I don't even know.
And especially the part where Ray gets like a blowjob, I guess, from one of the ghosts. Like, I've watched that with Logan, and I'm just like, I wish I could fast forward past this part.
Well, and the funny thing is, I mean, because I guess a lot of the times I saw it too is when it would be like on, like.
Oh, edited for television?
Yeah, edited for television.
Good point.
Almost every time I ever saw the movie, that part was edited out.
Gotcha.
Like, because when I do see that, It's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that because
Here we go.
You don't see it very often.
Here's Dan Aykroyd getting blown by an imaginary ghost. It's so silly. I don't even know why they had to put that in. And it's not like I'm a prude. I'm not. But it just didn't belong.
Yeah.
It just didn't belong. Blowjob. I guess blowjob jokes were big in the 80s or something, I guess. But I remember I saw that movie on VHS. I was at my aunt's house, and she had 2 daughters who were older than me. So they had wanted to see it. So I didn't see the whole movie right just then. I only saw parts of it. But I saw some of the best parts. Like the part where they go to the hotel for the first time.
Oh, man.
That was like my introduction to Ghostbusters. And it was a little bit scary, but at the same time, funny.
I would say that whole hotel scene where they run into Slimer for the first time is my absolute favorite.
The part where he asks if they tested the equipment is so amazing. Like, it's like we have these unlicensed nuclear reactors on our backs, or I forget
Nuclear
the
accelerator.
Yeah.
Well, no sense worrying about it now.
Why worry? Each of us is wearing an unlicensed nuclear accelerator on his back.
Yep. Let's get ready. Switch me on.
And then they switch it on, and then they back into the corner. Love it. Maybe the best chemistry of ever. Those guys, and they're different guys. They're very different, but they all come together just perfectly.
They shoot it like that maid, and like everything's on fire, and she's just like picking up toilet paper and stuff. Sorry, my bad.
My bad. Oh, and then the slime thing was big. You know, like he slimed me. You know, he totally ad-libbed that.
Yeah.
And you kind of told me about this. I mentioned commentaries earlier. You had told me about the commentary for Ghostbusters, and I had to watch it. You were like, it is so interesting because they go into so much. They went into detail over a lot of the practical effects they pulled off.
Like in the beginning, like when the books are going by, and like Harold Ramis is like, books on a wire.
Yeah, it's like, you know, they're totally like having fun with it.
Yeah.
And you know how they blew the cards out of the card catalog.
Yeah.
You know, it's so practical.
Yeah, they just had like tubing like on the back of them and just blew it, and they just fly through the air.
Just great. But every line, there's not a wasted scene or a wasted, like all the throwaway lines are hilarious.
Wait. I've always wanted to do this. And the flowers are still standing.
There's just nothing bad about that movie. And so we talked about our first memories of it, I guess. What are your thoughts on the second movie, Ghostbusters 2?
Oh, not as good.
Yeah.
I like it fine.
I loved it at the time.
Yeah, I mean,
loved it at the
I
time.
loved it. It was a sequel to Ghostbusters, and so it was like default love. But
sure,
yeah, I mean,
again, it's another one of those movies.
I love the Scoleri brothers. I mean, that.
Oh, the Scoleri brothers are kind of scary. Yeah,
I love that courtroom scene.
That was a great do re.
Yeah.
He sheepishly looks away.
Right.
Again, there's that chemistry, but Ghostbusters 2 is kind of that point where, like, I guess Bill Murray kind of got off ship. He kind of went like Ramis and Aykroyd always in favor of making a third movie. I guess that movie is what soured Bill Murray. Like, he kind of went off on his own. He didn't want to. He had wanted no part, and it went on for years and years. So like, it was like 5 years in between the sequel and the original. Anyway, that when I think of the Ghostbusters legacy, it's just sad how it ended up. All the scripts, all the on-agains, off-agains. You know, Bill Murray's he's in or he's out. He's not interested. He saw the script and he threw it away. He shows up at an award show in full Ghostbusters costume, you know, thinking like, oh my God, they're gonna do this, and then it just it never happened.
But then they all came together for that video game.
Yeah,
and did the voice acting for the video game,
and that was I think
that was good.
That was supposed to be like what the movie was gonna be, I suppose.
Well. It wasn't like what the scripts had been when, you know, because
totally.
they had scripts for
there was one where they were supposed to go to hell or something like that.
And it wasn't that, but ultimately what it ended up, it was like everybody kind of had considered this is our Ghostbusters 3 because it's never going to happen.
Yeah. And then, of course, Harold Ramis passed away, and then I guess like it seemed like right around that time they were like, okay, we'll do this, but we're going to do this differently. We're going to move on. They had to move on at that point. And then we got the all-female Ghostbusters movie, which wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
But it just did. My biggest gripe with that movie, and we might as well turn this into a little bit of a gripe fest because Ghostbusters is it's another one of those almost perfect movies. Pure movie magic, almost perfect. I can't think of anything bad about it. Great characters, amazing cast.
And, and one of the things I loved about Ghostbusters was the equipment.
Oh, I appreciated the science
and
a lot.
That's really kind of one of the things I hated about the new one is because like it was all different.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't as cool. And
no. Yeah, and Holtzman, I guess, was that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah, she would just come up with shit like fast.
She was cool. I
loved her. I liked her character quite a bit. They were all like, I enjoy every one of those people individually. I just never felt like they came together. Like there just was no chemistry like
not like the
original guys. And they all showed up in like cameos, and that was fun at first. But then in the end, you're just like, I just so wish they would have not tossed continuity out the window.
Yeah, and I mean
they didn't have to do that.
I kind of hated Bill Murray's cameo.
He was a dick. He was like the naysayer kind of. Even him being involved, it was kind of like he was thumbing his nose at the whole thing. Even then, so.
Like Winston's cameo was really cool, and Janine's was cool.
Janine's was fine.
Ray's was like, "Hey, I'm a taxi driver."
Yeah. I ain't afraid of no ghosts, and he said that whole deal, but whatever. And but I don't want to get. Let's not get too far into the remake. I guess you'd call it a reboot, remake. Yeah. Someone was just telling me the other day they felt like that. What's his name? Feige? I don't know.
Kevin
Feige, yeah. The one who does like all those Melissa McCarthy movies or whatever. Yeah. He expressed some interest in making like a sequel, and I'd be all for it. Let him have another shot. Like there's enough talent there to make a good movie.
I'd watch it.
Yeah, I'd love to see another Ghostbusters movie, but it was such a public financial disappointment. You know, like Sony apparently ate a bunch. They like took a big loss on that movie. So don't know if we're gonna get that or not, but I hope it comes back in some way. You know, bring it back somehow. Ghostbusters is just too damn good of a property to not be taken advantage of. Make it a show. Make it a Netflix show or something. Yeah. Make it.
Oh, speaking of which, when we were talking about Dark Crystal, I mean, there's a
there's a new
series
coming out this year sometime. I think.
Yeah.
I'll check that out.
There's a lot of talk about finally making a sequel to that, which kind of went, it disappeared.
Yeah, things go
But
sideways.
then that kind of turned into the Netflix series. Yeah. So anyway.
Well, it's like the Spaceballs thing. Like they were gonna make a sequel to that, and it kind of turned into.
There was a cartoon.
Yeah. They just could never, because like they wouldn't be able to get Rick Moranis. They wouldn't be able to get John Candy, obviously, because he passed.
Have you seen the cartoon?
No.
It
seemed kind of iffy to me.
Yeah.
I just couldn't watch it because like they have those same characters, just not voiced the same, right?
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. Anyway. Not talking about things we don't like, but I'm with you. Like I like Ghostbusters 2. It was totally fun for the time. There's certainly good parts to it. I love the NES controlling the Statue of Liberty. That was good for me at the time. I can totally. By the way, I can totally understand why Bill Murray would not like that movie. I can totally understand. It was a late 80s movie, which was a product of his time. And how do you make a sequel to a movie that was so perfect, right?
Yeah.
There never was a need for a sequel. It was just great. The story was phenomenal. It ended great. Everything was awesome. There just wasn't a need for the second movie, but they made it anyway, and it made pretty good money. It did okay, but then that was it. It killed it more or less. The TV show carried it on for a bit. Ecto coolers and all that stuff carried it forward. Yeah. But I don't even know what else to say about Ghostbusters. Obviously we love it. You got the shirt on right now. That logo is like super popular to this day. I've got a couple of t-shirts with that Ghostbusters logo. Ecto 1 was in our vehicles episode. It's just an iconic vehicle. Slimer, was popular in the cartoon, and of course had the Ecto Cooler
When
drinks.
we did our Halloween one, I dressed up as one.
We once saved the world from a Sumerian god.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you could totally cosplay as a Ghostbuster. You take it pretty seriously, I guess.
When I was a kid, I won a costume contest at Jefferson Mall.
No way. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it was like
with the toys that you could
it was
buy.
a homemade.
Oh, cool.
I made it. Made like the backpack and everything.
Actually, the toys probably wouldn't even have been around at that point. Would have they been?
The official Proton Pack toy wasn't out yet.
Yeah,
I got it when it did.
The cartoon was a couple years after the movie, so
Yeah.
there was that period where there was no Ghostbusters stuff. It was just the movie. That's cool. It's a big part of our lives.
It was like a $5 gift card or something.
I love that Dan Aykroyd he's still carrying that mantle. He's still holding the candle. He was a producer on the new movie, and as long as Dan Aykroyd is alive, Ghostbusters will have its heart. It will continue to be a thing. Maybe if he dies, then I don't know. Maybe he's part of the problem. Maybe he's holding up stuff. I don't know. Maybe he's so attached to it and he's so emotionally involved with it. It's keeping stuff from being made. Yeah. I could kind of almost see that. But yeah, with Harold Ramis passing and Bill Murray not seemingly wanting to have anything to do with it anyway, I think Dan Aykroyd's kind of like the one thing holding it where it is. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll hope for a new movie. That's it for Ghostbusters, I guess. Move on to my final pick.
Yeah, last one.
Yeah, my final pick's it's kind of a personal one here. It's my boy Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith is my spirit animal t-shirt that I bought here. Clerks. 1994, in black and white, as you alluded to before. This movie, so I was working at a video store when I first heard about this movie in 1995, and they were holding a contest for Clerks for the release of the movie. And the video was like, you be Clerks, like film like your coworkers doing like funny Clerks stuff. Because the whole point of the movie was like best friends, they're slackers. It embodied the 90s spirit and attitude of Gen Xers. Like we're sarcastic. It kind of kicked off that pop culture reference as a dialogue, They spoke in references to movies. That's just what they did. Everything was predicated on some sort of pop culture something. And it's famously
they would have like those conversations of like Star Wars stuff, like the employees like building the Death Star.
So a construction job of that magnitude would require a hell of a lot more manpower than the Imperial Army had to offer. I bet they brought independent contractors in on that thing. Plumbers, aluminum siders, roofers.
Not just Imperials, is that what you're getting at?
Exactly. In order to get it built quickly and quietly, they'd hire anybody that can do the job. Think the average stormtrooper knows how to install a toilet main? All they know is killing in white uniforms.
Yeah, it's these great deep. It's a movie about conversations. It's one camera, and Kevin Smith made the movie by running up, I forget the amount, $30,000 or so. He didn't have a college education. He went to film school for a year, made some friends. He found his longtime producer Scott Mosier in college. They came down. He was like, more or less like, we both want to make our movie, but whoever makes their movie first, the other person will come down and help them make their movie. So Kevin Smith had his plan first, and it worked out great. But it released during a time when independent films were exploding. Independent movies, they were cheap, but they profited. They weren't like huge blockbusters, but if you bought an independent movie for like $50,000 and it made $10 million, you made a huge profit. So they picked up Kevin Smith's movie at an independent film festival in 1994, released it, and it didn't set the world on fire in theaters, but where it did set the world on fire was on VHS. So, the contest, we didn't enter the contest. I wish we would have, but I didn't have any context at the time to who the hell Kevin Smith was. Now, if I could have done it over, I would have been on board for that 100%. But I saw myself a bit of as a movie person. I was working at a video store, the Video Vault or whatever. So at this point, I was really, really heavily into movies, influenced by my brother, who was also really heavily into movies. And Kevin Smith spoke my language, everything to him was just movies. So I kind of he spoke to me. And it wasn't until years later that I actually would kind of get to know Kevin Smith, not so much on a personal level because I don't know him personally, but he's so forthcoming with his life. You can't help but get to know the guy because he just tells you everything. And he took on this second life. Like, he was this great director in the independent movies for Miramax. Clerks, Mallrats, which was more of a commercial movie that didn't... It was supposed to be the movie that put him in the mainstream, but it didn't. Back to independent movies like Chasing Amy, Dogma, and then, he found success with like Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. None of his movies ever grossed a ton, ever. I think probably the highest grossing movie he ever made is like probably 30 million or something like that. And that was that Seth Rogen movie. And it was a big disappointment even. So where Kevin Smith, and this movie's less about the movie and more about Kevin Smith, this pick, I'm going to go ahead and just say, I'm a big, big, big fan of Kevin Smith. I really appreciate, he touched me like a lot of these movies. There's a reason why they're my favorite movie. He's the reason. The movie's great. I love the dialogue. And you see yourself in some of these characters. It's easy to see yourself. And the jokes are funny. Like, the 37 in a row.
37.
I'm 37?
Going to class.
Oh my God. 37. My girlfriend sucked 37 dicks.
In a row?
The characters are great. Kevin Smith, of course, plays Silent Bob, a character in the movie who doesn't have any speaking roles until the very end when he imparts wisdom. Then that kind of became his shtick. Like, he would be silent in all their movies. At the end of the movie, he would impart his wisdom. And you're like, he speaks, like, what's up? And Jay is his sidekick who's loudmouthed and vulgar, but they're friends somehow. Which is his true life best friend in, Jason Mewes. But yeah, this pick is just mostly about Kevin Smith. I adore the guy. I think he's a great dude. I think he's really a generous guy. He found success, and he's always been one to want to encourage, independent filmmakers to get out there. Mm-hmm. In a world where most people might try to block people from getting involved in a crowded business like show business, he's like encourages them. Like he has these great quotes. Like, people will come up to him, and he has this like little Q&As that he's famous for. And they'll say things like, I'm an aspiring filmmaker. And then Kevin Smith would just like cut him off. And he's like, don't aspire, do. You want to be a filmmaker, be a filmmaker. Do it, and then you become it, and it's like these things, like they just seem like, oh, well, of course,
Right.
When you hear him and you break it down, it's not like rocket science, but it's just the fact that he's out there and he's trying to encourage people to do what they want to do. And if you're the type of person that's creative in any way, you appreciate the hell out of these people. You idolize them almost. It's like, he could do it, maybe I could do it. And it's not like I ever aspired to be a filmmaker. But, I do like to do creative stuff, like whether it be with this podcast or, with websites I've done in the past where like I'll go and become a photographer for a college. Like, I just dare to do stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And people will tell me like, why are you doing that? That's, why? You get that a lot. And he would get that a lot. And I see myself in him. Like, I understand, like, I know how it feels for people to say, why are you doing these things? And I just say because I want to.
Right.
I'm not going to let somebody tell me that it's dumb. And thankfully, I'm in a situation where, like, I don't have anybody telling me it's dumb. But you do get those, like, I'll say, like, hey, I do a podcast with my best friend. And people know what a podcast is nowadays more than they did 10 years ago. But there's always, like, an angle. Like, what's your angle? Are you trying to get rich? No, I'm not trying to get rich.
Yeah, like
It's
anytime,
just...
like I say, that I do that, it's like the first thing that goes to their mind too, and
Yeah.
I'm just like,
No,
nothing.
it's just something fun I like to do. It lets me spend time with my best friend. Like, we've been friends for a long time, and like you go through periods where you don't hang out all that often. This gives us a way to hang out a lot, and we can talk about things, and I learn new things about you all the time. And you me as well, right? So I just do it because it's fun to do.
Yeah,
That's
it's like never even something that would cross my mind, honestly.
Yeah, or doing a podcast.
Well, no, I mean like
or making money.
The fame and fortune.
Oh hell no, yeah. No, I'm not naive in that way, and I don't think Kevin Smith thought he was going to be famous. He saw a movie that was a Richard Linklater movie called Slackers, and the movie was just, it was just some guys together. They were like in Austin, Texas, so they weren't in Hollywood. And he saw this movie and he loved it, and it inspired him because he's like, why? I can make this movie. I could be this guy. Why not me? Why not me? And God bless the guy, he went out and did it, Mm-hmm. He took his friends, he wrote a script, and he's immensely talented. He didn't become famous for nothing. He's immensely talented, but he got him, he was from New Jersey, and he worked at a Quick Stop. Like, he really actually worked at that Quick Stop,
Is that the one?
That's the one. That is an actual store. It's still there. And occasionally, every now and then, when he goes back home to visit his mom, his mom, I think, lives in Florida now or something. I know so much about the guy, it's ridiculous. But he'll go back to New Jersey because that's his roots, and he'll post like on Instagram, like the store. He just did it recently, like a few months ago, because he had a heart attack, and you reflect, you start thinking about things, your past, where you've come from, and he's a very emotional kind of guy anyway. We've seen him. We saw him.
Did he used to play hockey on the roof? For real?
No, not for real. He plays hockey, but never on the roof. I think that was, for whatever reason, I can't remember why they decided to make it on the roof. There was a reason. Just like the movie takes place inside. They had to film the whole movie at night because it was an actual convenience store. Mm-hmm. So the big first part of the movie where they put the tarp over. Mm-hmm. And in the movie, he wrote it in like somebody gummed it up, the lock, so they couldn't raise the whatever.
Oh, right.
Well, he wrote that in because they could only film the movie at night, so they that thing had to be down, and so that he just wrote that in so they could make the movie at night. So he knew the owner, and they had his friend Brian Johnson worked at the video store around the corner. Like the whole movie is basically about him. And this guy named Brian Johnson, who does another really famous podcast. Well, not famous, I guess, but it's called Tell 'em Steve Dave. Characters that are like you may know from Mallrats, just small ancillary characters, but they do their own podcast, and it's hilarious. I love it. I've been listening to it for years. Actually, I didn't even know about him until I saw the show Comic Book Men, which is like going into its like 7th season or something. I was like, oh, I kind of recognize those guys. And so, Walt Flanagan, who actually runs his store, The Secret Stash, in New Jersey, that Kevin Smith owns, the whole podcast, the show is based on them doing the podcast together. Like, they did the podcast, and then Kevin Smith was like he was shopping show ideas. He's like, I know these guys, they're doing this podcast. They work at my store. They were looking for like a show because shows like Pawn Stars was popular. Like, we want to do something like that, but with comic books. And he was like, well, who do you have in mind that you want to have star in it? And he was like, oh, my friends. Obviously, he always has his friends in his projects. He's one of those guys. He's very loyal to his friends, like Adam Sandler, like he always has the same people. And he could probably do better if he was, to get other people involved, but he's just loyal to his friends. And he wants them to do well. So, but anyways, I forget where I was going with that. But yeah, the whole hockey thing, that was, I think, just something he wrote in for whatever reason. It was one of the few daytime scenes they have in the movie because all of it's shot at night.
Right.
But yeah, he almost went broke. I mean, he took a big risk. He charged up all his money, and he had no means to pay for it. And his whole thought process was, I'm going to make this movie. I'm going to try and get it entered into I'm going to try and get it sold. And if it fails, then I'll get a second job, and I'll just spend whatever amount of time it takes to pay off that debt, and then I'm going to make another one. He never was going to let it deter him because it looked like for a moment like they weren't going to sell it. But it's a really cool story. If you guys don't listen, I mean, if you're listening to podcasts, obviously you probably listen to others. If you're listening to this one, Kevin Smith has a thing it's like a whole network called Smod. So there's he has his Smodcast podcast. It's called Smodcast. It's him and Scott Mosier, who is his friend from college. Hilarious. There's one called Jay and Silent Bob Get Old, which was filmed when we saw Kevin Smith. It was him and Jay Muse. Like, that's the show they do together. There's one called Fat Man on Batman, which is this kind of pop culture. That one's taken center stage more recently. He's got this guy who used to be a writer for Entertainment Weekly and some other publications called. His name's Mark Bernardin. And he's a real knowledgeable comic book guy. So they do a show together called Fat Man on Batman, where they rarely ever talk about Batman. He originally did talk about Batman a lot because it's like his favorite character. But I don't want this to go on too much. I don't know how many opportunities I'm going to get to talk about Kevin Smith and like what he means to me. You've seen Clerks. What when you saw Clerks? What did you think?
I don't know. It's just hilarious.
Yeah.
Interesting because of the whole black and white thing.
Yeah.
Made it stand out.
It did. Yeah. That was a wise choice that they made that.
But I don't know. It was just something unique and interesting about just watching these guys like go through like a day of their lives.
Well, yeah, because we had experience as clerks, quote unquote. You know?
Yeah.
We worked at McDonald's, and I've worked those jobs. Like I've also worked at McDonald's, and I've worked at video stores, and I've never worked at a convenience store, but I've served the public. I know how idiotic they can be, and that's kind of the point. Like they're these smarmy kind of like they're no better than anybody else, but they think they are.
I mean, and it came out about that time that it was like, that's us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
You couldn't help but see yourself in these guys. You might not necessarily have been Randall or Dante, but, the point was it was just a couple of friends, really good friends who were just kind of stuck together. That's their reality. That's their life.
Yeah.
The grind, the day-to-day grind, and what is this life about? And I like how they kind of touch on that. They struggle. Like they mentioned parts of the movie where they went to college together, like they went to like a semester of community college, and like we had done that. Like we went to community college. It's like you're trying to figure out what do you want to do with your life, and that hit home really hard because they went to college together and it didn't work out, so they both dropped out. It's like they just knew they were meant for something. But here they are doing this, not thankless, monotonous job, with people who are trying to get that perfect gallon of milk or smashing the eggs on the glass but also told in a way like nobody talks like that. Nobody talks like the way they talked in that movie.
Yeah.
It's like the best version of them. And I think it would be great to be that person, like who nobody talks like that, but they did,
Right.
Just these long dialogues. The Star Wars stuff is perfect. And then, they have these like casual conversations about relationships and stuff, just great. It's a wonderful movie. It really is a great movie. It's not just to talk about Kevin Smith, but I couldn't help but go on a little bit. I could do a whole podcast on the dude for sure. But Clerks, it was like a religious experience for me. It really opened my eyes. It allowed me to I saw movies differently after that. I think it encouraged me to look for movies like it more. It was all blockbustery kind of stuff up until that point. Or maybe not blockbuster, but like big Hollywood, like comedies or whatever. You think about what was popular at the time. It was like Happy Gilmore and Tommy Boy. And it was all very produced, heavily produced. And then it kind of lets you know that, hey, there's this other side of movies. The cheaper independent movie. Give them a chance because sometimes they're really, really, really good. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I still check them out to this day. So anyway, this episode's gone on a bit longer than I expected it to, as it usually does. I felt your eyes rolling on me when I said, hey, this will probably be less than an hour.
Right.
So once again, we're going way long. This is probably a couple hours. So, hope you enjoyed, talking about our favorite movies. I'm sure some of these movies are on your all's list.
Movies we love.
Movies we love. 10 of our favorite movies. Of our favorite movies. It's like the whole game show. Like these are 15 of our favorite. We gotta hold the door open. No, not ranked. We gotta throw all the caveats in, all the parameters, because we want to like talk about other stuff at another time.
Yeah.
So we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. I think that's the smart thing to do. All of our baskets in one egg. That's right? No. I'd like to do more nuanced lists. Maybe we could do. I love to talk about movies. It's one of my favorite things. So it'd be cool to revisit maybe genres or something. Maybe one time, like comedies or scary movies, or like I said before, like maybe movies you watch too young. But you kind of were like, I can't really think of any of those kinds of movies.
Yeah, I don't know what to say.
I'm gonna try and come up with some other like movie related formats that works for you, so we can talk more about movies, because I really like talking about movies almost as much as I like talking about games. They're really pretty even. So if you guys want to hear us talk more about movies, let us know.
Share your favorite movies in the comments.
Yeah, totally. I would love to hear other people's favorite movies. I'm always on the lookout for new movies to watch, and Nick's given me one. So if there's probably a movie you recommend that I haven't seen, but Nick managed to do it. It had to go all the way back to 1954, and it had to be a foreign film, but he did it. But for sure, thanks for listening to us on the audio format, whether that be iTunes or Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher. I try to get us as many places as I can. If you are listening on audio, please consider checking us out on YouTube, which is, I try to put a lot of effort into, mixing in clips. There's just aspects of the show you're not going to appreciate listening only in the audio form. I love to listen to audio podcasts myself, but I always appreciate it when, the creators do a video format version of the show, because it's fun to watch the hosts engage and talk to each other. And then, of course, like I said, I'll try and edit in little things here that you just can't see in the audio only version. So please consider checking us out on YouTube. It's just YouTube. You can search for BitGeeks, or you can actually put in youtube.com/BitGeeks, I guess, or maybe C/BitGeeks. Just search for BitGeeks. You'll find us. And I guess we'll go ahead and end it on that note. I have been your host, Ron Avis.
And I'm Nick Wright.
And we'll see you next week.